What's up, guys? This is Alex Van Houten with Defining Dad Bod. I hope you're doing well. Happy almost fall. Today, we have our summer transformation stories here for you, brought to you by Bauer Power Fitness Consulting and recorded live through Facebook Live. There's actually a link in the show notes if you want to get connected with John Bauer from Bauer Power Fitness in order to get a 2-week free trial of training with him. Just click that link and let him know you're interested. And a huge and special thanks to him for taking his journey and his experience with losing over 100 pounds and using that experience to inspire and encourage other people to share their stories in their journey of health and fitness. John, you rock, man, and thanks for navigating the difficult waters of Facebook Live. And now for our stories. We have 8, count them, 8 transformation stories that our community here at Defining Dad Bod have shared over the last few months of summer. This is a long episode, so if you're interested in checking out one specific person's story, you can find those timestamps in the show notes below. In our first transformation story, meet a dad who lost 117 pounds and then dedicated himself to helping others by becoming a trainer himself through the ISSA. In our second story, we meet a man who went from scrawny to competitor, leading a life of exercise and nutrition excellence with his wife and kiddos. In our third story, you have to respect the beard. He lost an amazing amount of weight through veganism, starting at over 300 pounds and then pursuing health and fitness through growing muscle and boxing with animal protein. Quite the conversion there. Our fourth story brings us the story of a man who had to overcome some poor eating habits ingrained in him as a child in a Sicilian family. Mom's cooking was fantastic until graduating high school found him with way lower activity and the pounds started piling on. And he tells us his story about reinventing the way that he understands his own personal health and fitness and nutrition. And in our fifth of 8 stories, meet a man who had to admit that he was an alcoholic and to realize that he could have fun without alcohol as part of his journey in putting himself together for his 4 girls. In our sixth story, if you can wade through some of the technological difficulties that he and John had, you'll hear about a dad who had to juggle 2 jobs while he changed his life to lose over 100 pounds in 6 months. Our second to last story is about a dad who was eating 5 junior bacon cheeseburgers for lunch to train for powerlifting meets and eventually recognized that staving off heart disease was more important than competing in the powerlifting meets. He went from a towering 260-pound mountain of a man to overcoming his own ego to be a normal 180. A powerful story about putting your health first. And then last, but certainly not least, to tie up our 8 transformation stories for the summer, let's meet a dad who worked really hard to get off cholesterol medications, lower his triglycerides, and lose the fat that he needed to lose. He used to be a smoker and a candy eater. Swedish fish was his big vice. But now he's become an event inspirer, and many people look to him to be inspired to try rucksacking events, obstacle course races, and even marathons. It's my privilege at Defining Dad Bod to honor these dads who have changed themselves in the journey of health and fitness for themselves and their families. I hope that you find these stories motivating and inspiring. And to join the movement, go to www.patreon.com/definingdadbod. Every dollar of support from patrons goes to producing, editing, and distributing content to inspire and equip this generation to leave a legacy of health and fitness for the next generation. Even $1 a month supporters are appreciated, and we have outstanding rewards that go all the way up to $50 a month patrons. Again, you can check it out and join the movement at www.patreon.com/definingdadbod. I really appreciate you supporting the production of shows just like this. Now let's get to these 8 transformation stories.
And so without any further ado, I want to welcome my guest today, Joe Jackson. Welcome, and thank you for taking time out of your very busy schedule. You and I have been talking for a couple minutes here, and I'm a little bit overwhelmed. And people say that I do a lot, and people wonder how much I sleep. I'm beginning to wonder, after having just talked to you for about 10 minutes, whether you sleep at all, because you've got quite a story to tell, and it's a story of someone who's probably as busy, if not more busy than I. So I want to thank you for taking time, but I think your story is fantastic. It's great. I've seen some of the pictures of your transformation, which our audience is going to see after we post this, and we'll put those in the comments. Joe, I always like to kind of start out these stories a little bit chronological. And what I always like to do at the beginning is just kind of ask you if you can tell us a little bit, one, about yourself right now, where you're living, family, wife and kids. And then if you would kind of take us back initially, tell us a little bit about childhood, young adulthood, whether you were an active kid, whether you were not an active kid, kind of where your physical transformation starts, kind of the before and after, if you will.
Oh, absolutely. And and thank you for, having me. And any time I have the ability to talk about my transformation story, I think it's a positive thing, especially since we all come from different backgrounds. Some people start out already fit, and we just need to get a little bit fit. And in my story, I'm a little bit different as far as my fitness journey, but a little bit about myself. I'm married. I have two boys named Braden and Landon. My wife, his name's Kelsey. We actually met in college back in 2006. And we just celebrated 10 years of marriage back this past June. But we initially met in college in Pennsylvania, Clarion University, excuse me. And then we lived in PA for a little bit, and then we got married actually in North Myrtle Beach, which is about 2 hours away from where we currently live. So we actually ended up down south then. But we lived up north for a little bit, and we moved down here back in 2011. So we've been down south for about 7 years or so. I have my oldest boy is 4 years old, and then I have another one who's about to turn 11 months actually in a few days. I work at Wells Fargo, so the majority of my days are sitting behind a computer crunching numbers and working on Excel sheets and stuff, and hence why my weight got out of control to begin with, because that was a lot of sedentary, work as far as that goes. But as far as my with me growing up, I actually grew up about an hour away from Philly, and it was one of those things where growing up, I was for the most part active, but I was always a big kid in class. Like I'm 6'5", so it's one of those things where I would always be head and shoulders above everyone. So it was one of those things I was stuck up like a sore thumb. But as far as activity wise, I remember just growing up, I would ride bikes. I would swim with my friends. I played sports. I loved bowling. I did baseball. I did some football. I played some football in high school. They tried to have me join the basketball team, but I'm not coordinated enough to play basketball. But I stuck mainly to football because that's my passion. I love watching, football. I like watching NFL, primarily. And, so it is one of those things where I had a fairly active childhood, but it wasn't until I got out of high school, that my activity level just really kind of fell off, because obviously I was in so many organized sports. And then when I kind of graduated and got away from that, then I think we all run into that issue, especially when we're young. We feel we can eat anything because we're so active, we don't realize it. So I was used to eating garbage food, and I remember playing on a football team. We would have ice cream eating contest and like taco eating contest, and it was one of those things where I didn't care because we were doing two-a-days. So I would bust my tail. I would just say, I didn't care about my weight, because I was just like, what, I'm out there in pads hitting sleds and all that, so I can down 15 ice cream bars and it's not going to matter. Well, you take that activity level away, and then after I graduated high school, I would go and eat McDonald's like at 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night. Well, I'm eating like garbage, but I'm not, doing any kind of activity. Well, my body's like, okay, what do you want me to do with this? Well, it pretty much showed me what to do with it. So it just started just packing it on just wherever it could. So I would say, all through high school, I was around like the 250 mark, as far as weight wise. But then I got out of high school and I got all the way up to 300 pounds like that. It didn't take long for me to get to 300 pounds, but I stayed around 300 pounds for a while. And the only reason I stayed around 300 pounds is that the jobs that I had primarily had me on my feet. So I didn't get too out of control. Like used to work at like a grocery store, things of that nature. So, it was one of those things where I was on my feet enough where it didn't lose too much. But then I fast forward where I started working at Wells Fargo, sitting behind a desk. Now I've completely taken any activity out. And then that's when my weight just got completely out of control then.
How high did you get?
I would say the last time that I got weighed, the doctor said I was around close to 370 or so.
Wow. And I don't know, and it's interesting because a lot of guys that I've talked to in these interviews up to this point were shorter. You're a tall guy like me. Mm-hmm. I was at my max 350. So we were probably pretty close in size and stature. Did you ever, and it's out of curiosity, I mean, did you ever feel like because of your height that it either feel like, or if somebody told you that you could carry it better? Because I had people tell me that all the time. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And it kind of creates this false sense of like, it's not as bad as it honestly is, because you are 6'4", you are 6'5". People think, "Oh, you're heavy, but you carry it well."
Yeah, I got that a lot. Yeah. I got people when I said to people, when I think at one point I was about 345, 350ish, I want to say. I've had people say, I'm like, "Oh, I'm just so big," and I told them my weight, and they're like, "Wow, you don't look it. You're just big boned," and I'm like, "I just don't."
Oh yeah, that was a regular.
Like, what does that even mean?
Yeah, all the time. Yeah, and you start to tell yourself that it's okay. That it's almost like, well, it's not that big. Maybe it's not that big of a deal. Right.
No, absolutely. And then it was, the more people tell you that, the more you start, like you said, start believing it, and then you keep pushing back, and you keep pushing it aside, and it's some people do it because they just, it's not in their nature to be mean. There's some people that just, because I'm not strutting around with my shirt off and things of that nature. Like,
no, that's not gonna happen. Yeah.
I'm a tall guy. They're like, well, you're supposed to be big boned, and that's not necessarily the case, know. And I think that's the thing about it.
So when you're this big, how old are you when you're 370?
Let's see. This was 2 years ago, so I was 35 at the time when I was at my heaviest. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and obviously at some point there was a trigger that hit that made you realize something had to change. What was that for you?
Well, with me, it was actually the really the biggest catalyst was actually my grandfather. Now he had been battling cancer for a while at that point, and my wife and I and my oldest son, he had just turned 1. We took a trip from South Carolina up to New Jersey, and we were visiting family, so we were visiting not only my parents that lived right outside of Philly, like an hour outside of Philadelphia, but then also my wife's family who lives in the Pittsburgh area. But we drove up to New Jersey to visit him because we didn't know how much time he would have on this earth. So I wanted him to meet his great-grandson, but I wanted to spend some time with him as well.
Sure.
So, and back in May, this was actually May 2015 when we took the trip up north to visit him, and he pointed out that said, Joe, you've gotten so big. And I thought big meaning like tall, initially. But I was thinking to myself, well, I was like, well, I'm in my mid-30s, so I don't think I'm growing anymore. So I thought he was joking around, but I felt him like watching me the whole time, and he said it like 2 or 3 other times during the trip, and I realized that he would say the big meant that I just got big, like fat, so to speak, and it triggered something in me because it was something that it's like that nagging thing in the back of your head where you just it's there, like it's like that annoying bill or that annoying that task that that's in the back of your head. You need to get it done, but you keep putting it off. Well, this was a 370-pound nagging thing in the back of my head. So that trip was the initial trigger to say, okay, I need to do something. And that trip, with the combination of later on that year, it was September 2015, I threw my back out. And I remember thinking to myself that I'm in my mid-30s and I'm having back problems. And to me, that was a major red flag because for the most part, I mean, knock on wood, I haven't had any major issues. Like I had ankle surgery, but I also had flat feet. So but looking back, that was also a weight thing too.
Yeah.
But I contributed to say, I just have flat feet. That's why I had to have ankle surgery, and not, I'm too big and that's why. But when I threw my back out, and it was a combination of throwing my back out, what my grandfather said, and then obviously getting on that scale, and then seeing that doctor, when you stand on that scale and they move that little dial over and over, and they kept going over, and I'm like,
it's those bottom notches that get you, isn't it?
Yeah, and just kept going. The bottom notch, and when it said 365, 370, I remember standing there thinking like, I got to do something, but I didn't know what to do. I mean, I really didn't have any, clue. I had tried a lot of fad stuff, things like the Atkins diets, where you just cut out all carbs, or just we used to have a stationary bike or something like that, and none of that worked. But I knew I needed to do something.
Did you have any success with those, or were they just?
I mean, with the Atkins diet, I lost like 30 pounds or so. I even lost weight. I don't know if you remember, but the Nintendo Wii used to have the Fit board.
Yeah, we have one. Okay. I think it's still in the basement, but we have one.
Okay, yeah. I actually I used that with the stationary bike, and I actually lost weight doing that. But I guess the only problem with that is it didn't really address what to eat. Like the activity level wasn't too bad, but it was fun. I actually lost about 20 pounds doing that, but the problem was the weight would always come back. It was just I couldn't find any. I was having trouble finding things that were sustainable.
Right.
And
right.
That was the problem.
So what finally clicked? What finally worked?
Well, I mean, took some, actually, it's really attributed to my wife, because she was the one who was friends with a lot of people. There was, a lot of her friends did a lot of like the Beachbody stuff, as far as like they have like a lot of in-house like workouts and things of that nature. And, she noticed that these people were doing workouts in home. And one of my biggest hurdles, things that I had trouble with, is I wanted to work out and go work out at the gym, but I was very self-conscious. And the in-home workouts allowed me to work out in the comfort of my home and not be judged. And that was the thing, because if I didn't have that, there's no way I would be where I'm at today. I would still be at that weight or worse. I mean, I can pretty much guarantee you that. Mm-hmm. Because I just, before I lost all this weight, I got to the point where I just threw my hands up and I don't know what to do. My grandfather had passed away. I felt I had let him down. I felt I let everyone down, and I was about to just give up. And then it wasn't until she mentioned she's like, why don't you do something in home? And that's where Beachbody came in. So they have programs that, do a little bit of everything. But that got me on the path. And what was nice about them, is that, yes, I had, in-home workouts, but they taught me a little bit about meal prep, things that, I do grocery shopping, but then they said, use that grocery shopping, but also, use it to prepare your food for like the week, and once I started getting educated on that, then that's when, I thought to myself, okay, I think I can do this, work out at home and start really watching what I eat and planning my meals and doing a little research instead of just because I dug myself into this because I didn't pre-prep anything. All I did was I just went into work and said, I'll just figure out my meals as I go. So I would go to like Chick-fil-A and then go to the vending machine and then go to Taco Bell for lunch. And then
all wonderful choices. Yeah.
Yeah. all great choices, high in salt and all that other fun stuff. And then I get home and then she's like, what do you want to do for dinner? And then I'm like, I don't know. Let's go to fill in the blank, or, let's have, just bust out some more tacos or something like that. And it was nothing. It was all kind of fly by the seat type thing. But that kind of helped me, adjust, because if your food's not right, then I just found out that nothing else matters, because you could work out like a fiend, but if you don't fuel, your body the right way, it'll just derail everything you just did.
It goes back to the old saying, you can't outwork a bad diet.
Yeah.
You can't outwork a bad. I mean, no matter how much work you do, if you're not right on the nutrition, and it's not just the fuel, it's making sure you're not getting the bad stuff and getting the good stuff. It's not going to completely damage, but it's not going to get you where you want either. That's the thing. So with that in mind, let me ask you, I always love to ask this question because it's something that I can relate to very well. What was the biggest vice or two that you had food-wise that you had to give up?
I loved hard shell tacos. Like, that was and still is my Achilles. Like, it was easy for me to give up pizza. It was easy for me to give up because everything else I was able to tweak in such a way that it wasn't too bad. Hard shell tacos, it was just something about them. It's just the crunchiness of the shell it was the salt, and then they had like the Mexican.
I can tell by the way you're describing it that it's an amazing thing for you. I mean, it's like the most descriptive taco I've ever heard.
It's just something. I mean, tacos it's a tie between tacos and the McDonald's 20-piece are the things that
That's interesting.
Those were the things that, I mean, I'll tell you, when I was at my worst, and I remember this clear as day, and I knew this is when I was in trouble, when it was a Saturday and then a Sunday. And pretty much for one day for lunch, I went to McDonald's and I got a double quarter pounder of cheese, a 20-piece, and a large fry.
All for one meal?
All for one meal.
Oh, my word.
But I said, I'm getting a Sprite, so that's not too bad. And yeah.
That's good that's good rationalization.
And then
the Sprite maybe has a little less sugar than a Coke.
Exactly. And then the next day, I don't know if you're familiar with, but at Taco Bell, they have those big party container of tacos.
Yeah.
Where you get like 10 or 12. That's what I would pound that down for lunch. And I had maybe one or two left, and I was the very next day when I went in, because I had left it by my desk, and the janitor guy came and says, "Oh, you left all your tacos by your desk." I'm like, "Oh." And I was so embarrassed because I was telling people, "Oh, I'm getting this for everybody," and I wasn't. For myself.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
So I left it by my desk, and at that point, I was just like, "What am I doing?" I just polished off, like, between that, the Saturday meal and then my Sunday meal. I said, I must have polished off at least 4,000 calories.
Oh my word, yeah.
4,000 calories, and like none of it was good. It's not like you hear like athletes that have 4,000 calories and they have like chicken,
like
and
10 chicken breasts or something like that. Yeah.
You know, that's one thing. No, this was high sodium fake meat and salt and cheese and all that, and that was just that was when I was at my worst. When I say I didn't care, I was like, I tell people, I was like 1 or 2 cheeseburgers away from 400 pounds. Like that's, wow.
I'm not sure whether to say that's awful or that's impressive, because I mean, there's a little bit of both there.
It's the eating contest. It's the eating contest I'm involved in.
There's a little bit of both there. It's awful, but it's awfully impressive too. I've got to admit, I can't say that I was actually, it's really funny because I was just looking at, I was in an article. A friend of mine wrote an article and submitted it to Men's Journal a couple months ago. And I was literally just reading the article before we got on tonight, and I was reading, and I had forgotten one of the things that I used to do when I was in law school, and law school was the worst 3 years of my life. That's another story for one time. I used to make a bowl of cookie dough.
Oh, really?
A bowl of cookie dough.
Wow.
Whole batch. And I mean, it might last 2 days, but it was a bowl of cookie dough. And that was.
Wow.
So, I mean, it's, there we go. Yeah, that's, I don't think I've ever said that in an interview before. So it's a new revelation about me on this interview tonight too.
Well, maybe it's my food thing.
I feel a little bit more comfortable sharing now that you shared that you've done a double quarter pounder and a dozen tacos in a period of 36 hours. So, but I mean, seriously, I mean, that's a huge thing. I mean, was it hard to stop?
Initially, yes, because, I started working out, but I still, before I got educated on meal prep, I still didn't know quite what to do with meals. So I just started kind of going through some of the stuff that had kind of worked for me in the past. So I said, well, maybe I could start cutting back on carbs. But the problem was, at work we have this little cafeteria area. So and then they serve, like they have like, breakfast that you can get. So in the morning, I said, okay, I'm gonna go to breakfast and I'm gonna cut down on carb. So what I would do is they have scrambled eggs, they would have sausage and whatever have you. So I said, okay, well, instead of going obviously to Chick-fil-A and getting like chicken biscuits and all that, I'll go there and then maybe I'll get some like eggs and some sausage. Well, the problem is I went there and get the eggs and the sausage. The eggs were drowning in butter, and then the sausage, they said a turkey sausage, but they were like the saddest turkey sausage links that you can ever look at. And then I said, well, maybe I'll get like a little bit. So I got like a small scoop of potatoes and then eventually not. But it was one of those things where it was just like I was losing weight, but I just didn't feel like that breakfast was complementing my workout the right way. I mean, for lunch, I started, obviously going away from the Taco Bell, and then I went with like lean pockets. Now, obviously, they're not the best, but
it's a step.
Better.
It's a step.
Yeah. So as anything, I had to take baby steps. There's no way I could have gone from eating what I was eating to all of a sudden just eating just fresh fruit and produce things, because I was just eating such a high salty, fatty diet. And I had to almost, just like a toddler or just like anyone, you have to crawl before you walk. And me, I had to just slowly like start weaning myself off of things, like really concentrate. I liked bottled water, but really sticking strictly to bottled water and cutting out just all soda. I wasn't a big soda drinker, but I stopped drinking soda altogether. And then the thing that really, really, really helped catapult me was really tracking my calories. And counting, and then just tracking my calories, that really, that's when I noticed consistent weight loss. And then, and then actually my Fitbit really helped because there's stuff on there that was preloaded and told me. And that's when I started really getting educated on serving sizes. Because before I would just, and everyone falls in, they look at the package and like, okay, 0 grams of fat. And then that's all they look at, but they don't look at anything else. Or they look at, how much carbohydrates it has. But I tell people there's so much in a label that if you just zero in on just that one or two things, you're ignoring it. I mean, because there's plenty of stuff out there that is maybe 0 grams of fat, but it's like 500 milligrams of sodium, or has 0 grams of fat, but it has 25, 30 grams of carbohydrates, and and it has no other, and then you look at the serving sizes, and that's the thing that I wasn't aware of, that when I look at that one thing, it's per, like, if you have 2 tablespoons of something, that's considered a serving size. Or if it's 1 slice of bread, that 1 slice of bread is what that package is saying. And it was just, once I started reading labels and really looking things that way, that's when I noticed, for one, obviously my weight loss going down, but 2, I noticed that just overall sort of feeling better, because I cut my sodium level down so much because I wasn't eating those high salt, high calorie meals. I had drastically reduced that then. That's
a huge part of it. So you said about 2 years ago, you're 370 and you make the changes and you make the turn. How does the progress go? How fast and how far?
Well, pretty much, I started in July of 2016, July 2016. Wow, time's going by.
Yeah.
And then from July 2016 to July 2017, I went from about 365, 370 down to all the way down to about 215.
Wow.
So I lost it and I was, once I got into it, and that's one thing about myself, I'm very militant when it comes to eating out and nutrition. So I stuck to a calorie scale and set a hard cap, and then from there I tried to just balance everything, and it took some tinkering here and there.
Sure.
But for breakfast, it was taking I may start out with just some rolled oats, adding a little fresh fruits, and that would be my breakfast, and then. If I had to have a snack, it would maybe be a little thing of Greek yogurt. And for lunch, it would be some healthy produce and some kale and some chicken breast, things of that nature. And then I started I do all our meal preps on Sunday. And so I would meal prep. I also meal prep for my wife as well, but I do it for myself, So I meal prep everything, for lunch. I might do some brown rice and some shrimp and some fresh, vegetables. And then for dinner, So by doing that a whole year, and then on top of that, pretty much working out, my 5 days a week, combination of, whether it's lifting, whether it's insanity, whether it was just, whatever Beachbody program that I was into, I did that 5 days a week, and I, watched my calories, and then the weight just flew off of me because
that's fantastic.
I was just, I don't get me wrong, I did treat myself,
you have to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, there's times when my son was like, "Oh, I want to go to Red Robin," so we would go to Red Robin. And the funny thing is, even though I would quote treat myself, I still wouldn't go completely off the deep end. And I don't know if it's because I don't trust myself, or it's just because I had been so disciplined. It's just like, okay, I'm going to treat myself, and then I'm like, okay, can I have a turkey burger with a lettuce bun? But then I would still maybe get sweet potato fries, and then but I would just get the one order, but that would be my treat.
Yeah.
But it was, even now I can go ahead and have that, or if it was like my son's birthday and he wanted to have like cupcakes or something like that, I would have that one cupcake, celebrate that with him. But it's not like that derails it. Like I can have that on Saturday, and then Sunday I'm back to it, and there's nothing that really affects me.
And that's important, and I think that's a good lesson to remember is as you're going through that, you can't and I've struggled with that, and I still go off and on with that, but you've got to celebrate. You've got to keep your life going. You can't stop life and constantly be so militant that you become miserable, because then you're not going to stay motivated. I think that's a really important lesson to remember, is to celebrate the things you're always going to celebrate. But but celebrate Christmas on Christmas, not for the 3 weekends before with all the parties. Whatever. Thanksgiving, you have one Thanksgiving meal, and it's not going to kill you, and you get back and you'll be fine.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you go through this huge transformation in a very quick period of time. Obviously incredibly exciting for you. Obviously incredibly exciting for your family. And now, as you've continued on this road, like so many of people that I'm coming across as I meet these people all over, it's not something you end up just doing for yourself, but you are turning around and doing this. You're paying it forward, so to speak, but you're doing it for other people. And tell everybody, I mean, you're doing a lot. I mean, we were talking before. You've got a full-time job with Wells Fargo, but tell everybody, I mean, what do you decide to take on as far as fitness, on top of that full-time job?
Oh yeah, I mean, and it's amazing now just the amount of energy that I have, to be able to keep up with not only my family with the 2 boys, but I teach Insanity 3 days a week. So that's Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. As soon as I'm done work, I get changed. I go to the local gym. I teach a class. I come home, and then on those days, a lot of times I come home, I eat, and then I have my own lifting schedule. So it's one of those things where, every day, pretty much Monday through Friday, I do have a combination of Insanity or my lifting. It's chasing down 2 boys. It's, helping my wife keep that, the house in order as far as, cleaning wise. It's preparing meals for the next day. And then obviously now we're heading into the fall. So we have soccer practice. We have, church events, school events, and it's just balancing it all. So but there's no way I could, a lot of it is just having that energy, just being, being, but, Insanity has actually helped me, with my energy level. I mean, it's not that I couldn't have done it before, but it's, Insanity. It's, I mean, for those who aren't aware, but it's another Beachbody program. It's a workout program, but it's something that it's one of those programs that's really helps with your agility. It's a good cardio. It's a full body workout. But I like teaching it to, the local gyms because, everyone, people go there and sometimes they just want to walk around the track, but most people want a little bit of a challenge. So I go there and I try to motivate and help. But when people see my before and after photo, they especially want to get attacked and say like, okay, whatever you did, I want to do for myself.
I want to do that. Yeah,
that's my biggest thing, just to be able to pay it forward. I've traveled this long road and gained all this knowledge to ultimately pass it on to everybody else and say, here are some of the pitfalls that I know you're going to have. I know you're going to have them.
Yeah.
This is how to combat them, so to speak.
Yeah, that's great. And you also have become certified as a personal trainer.
Yes, that's correct.
So that's something else that you're doing. That's inspiring. And like I said, I think that it's something very common in situations like yours and like mine and so many people, other people that I've talked to that have gone through this, such drastic as many of us have, that you just get to the point and you become so passionate about how it has benefited you. You want people to understand what it can do for them, and it doesn't have to be as drastic for them as it does for you or me, but it's understanding that just how it benefits you every single way. So I think that's great. So what's next for you?
Well, I mean, right now I have, my classes that I teach, but then I also have one client right now as far as personal training. And what I like to do now is to, take on more clients and, pay it forward to as many people as possible. I mean, I'm going on a year of, cause I got my certification to be a personal trainer actually last August. It's last August. So it's been a whole year since I've had the certification, and I've helped a few people, but I'd really like to help more. And that's pretty much my goal. I mean, I'm still, still currently a Beachbody coach as far as that goes. But as of right now, I'm a little bit more focused in on the personal training, aspect, because I've had a lot of people who are looking for that one-on-one personal training, focus. And that's why I got my certification, to not only for my education purposes for myself, but then to ultimately educate, others, because it's one thing to talk about just meal prep, but then people want, a little bit more science behind it. And I think that's where personal training can come into play then.
Right. So I always like to end the podcast interview with two questions. The first question I want to ask you is, as you look back and have gone through this, what was your biggest struggle?
Early on, it was, I know I mentioned before about the nutrition, but that was my biggest struggle, was just trying to figure out, not only just the nutrition, but something that was sustainable. I tell everyone this, anyone that's, was just curious about, how to get over that hump. And I tell them it's easier said than done, as far as, picking out something that works for you, something that's sustainable. And I tell you, my biggest struggle was finding food that worked for me, and that kept me nourished, but that one, hinder. And it's not something as easy as just looking online, looking up some recipes and going for it. It took me a long time to get my nutrition to a point where it worked for me. I had to constantly tinker with it. It took me about 6-7 months before I finally got into a point where it made, my food made sense. But yeah, food is huge. And even to this day, it depends on what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
If food's not on point, especially when I'm lifting, if I'm not taking in enough calories, or I'm not taking in the right food, it's ruining what I just did. So it's just, that's always something that I still kind of struggle with today at some points, just trying to figure out, not necessarily, I figured out the good versus the bad food, but now it's more of the food that, help me, versus the food is just not going to be beneficial then. So that's still something I, kind of struggle with here and there. But in the beginning, oh yeah, that was the hard thing, especially giving up all that salty food.
Right.
That was tough.
And the final question we always like to ask everybody is this: the title of this podcast is Defining Dad Bod. What does the phrase "Defining Dad Bod" mean to someone like you?
What it pretty much means to me is that, and especially, the church that I go to and the people that I interact with, a lot of them, as I get older, their fathers, they have, children around, my age. And, one of the things that in talking to a few fathers, whether I'm friends with them on Facebook or, I interact with them on a given day, is, fathers and having that quote unquote dad bod. That, is typical. Okay, well, I can have a little pot belly, but but other than that, I don't have time to be fit. And I think it's important that fathers, that they can be fit, but also not take away from their families. That you can exercise, but you can teach your children how to be healthy and eat well and exercise then. I think it's changing what the definition and the viewpoint of a dad bod is. Dad bod isn't just, it's just someone who sits on a couch and just drinks soda or snacks and just hangs out, and watches TV. Not to say there's anything wrong with that, but
right.
But you be active with your kids,
right.
Be able to be outside with them, play baseball, throw the ball around with them, ride bikes. Being active in their life, and teaching them that, because whether you have a son or a daughter, it's still showing like, hey, I'm active, I care, but then as they grow up, they can appreciate being active, and they can look back and say, hey, my father did this, instead of like, we sat inside the whole time watching TV. So I think, dad bod, especially me growing up, it was one of those things where dad bod and being a father was just, you know, yeah, you can just be there, but other than that, it wasn't being super active and being active in my life, you know. But, you know, I think nowadays, I think you can be a little bit of everything. You can be that father. You can sit there, maybe watch a movie with your child, but then the very next day, take them outside, throw the football around, ride bikes, do this activity, do that activity, show them the right way to eat, things of that, you know, nature. So, you know, I think, you know, and which is, I think it's important, you know, as fathers and people, kids, you know, they pay attention to everything that we do. So if we can set that example for them, you know, I think it would be a benefit to not only myself but also the kids as well, that they say, you know what, I can go ahead and, you know, I rather, instead of having that bag of fruit snacks, that I can have an apple, you know, or, you know, instead of sitting there watching bubble guppies on TV, let's go outside and let's have a walk around the neighborhood. You know, that's the kind of thing that, you know, advice should be about.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and I think that that's something that we need to remember is an important part of that phrase is dad, and that we set the example, and that what we're really doing is passing that on, you know, to our kids, and there's nothing more exciting, and I can speak from experience because I've had this happen. There's nothing more exciting as a dad to see that take root, because I didn't have that when I was a kid, and so it's great to see that change from in my own kids, and so that's a real exciting thing. So I totally agree. So hey, listen, I want to thank you for your time. I appreciate it. You have got a great story. Congratulations on sticking with it. Congratulations on not only sticking with it, but passing it forward. I think that that's a great thing. And I want to ask you, when we do post this, if you would make sure in the comments that you would post, and you got it on your Facebook page, but if you would post that picture of kind of the before and after, I know that people would love to see that, to hear what you've done. So,
absolutely.
And thank you very much for your time. It is a great story. I am still whirling in the back of my mind a double quarter pounder and cheese and a dozen tacos. I'm still I got to work through that one. That's mind blowing. But thank you so much for your time. I know, like I said, you got a billion things going on, and for you to take the time, I appreciate it. So thank you so much, and good luck on your endeavors, both your pursuit for other people and your pursuit for yourself.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much.
Okay.
Bye.
Wow. Losing 117 pounds and then becoming a trainer to help other people do the same thing is ridiculously inspiring. Thanks, Joe Jackson, for your commitment to yourself and your family. Next up is Mr. Dan Gomes, and I'm excited for you to hear about his story, going from a scrawny little guy to being a physique competitor.
How are you, man?
Good, John. How are you?
I'm doing good. Yeah, I didn't get a chance just to kind of recap for people who are watching or who are going to hear this on the Defining Dad Bod podcast. We attempted to do this last week. We had every potential problem that we probably could come up with, and we had to bail. So we did a test run yesterday. Worked absolutely perfect. I don't know if you called Facebook in the meantime and told them we were frustrated, but it worked absolutely perfect yesterday. And so here we are, and you popped on, and I'm guessing you're inside, and you got a strong signal. So we're going to see if this is. I've been doing this for about 4 months now. We are actually going to see, and I shouldn't even say anything because I'm going to jinx it, but we're going to see if this actually is the first interview that goes without a tech flaw. So we'll see if that actually happens or not. So, Dan, it is good to have you, and I'm glad we could work this out to do this again today. Tell me a little bit, where are you located right now? And just so everybody knows where you're located, and just give me a little background information about yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm in Spartanburg, South Carolina. I've been here my whole life, born and raised.
Okay. And family?
Family, yeah. I got married in 2011.
Okay.
And my wife and I, we have 6 children, including 1 foster child.
Wow. Okay, so 6 kids in 6 years. And 5 of those are...
We got married. She had 2 daughters.
Okay.
So I have 2 stepdaughters. And,
Okay.
We added 3.
Okay. I had to had to clarify that because that would have been really. So you have a foster child. How old is your foster child? Okay.
She's 9.
And your other kids? What are the ages of your other kids?
We have a 16-year-old, a 14-year-old, and then 5, 4, and 2.
Wow. So you literally are running the gamut of parenting stages right now. If you go from 2 to 16, you are running the gamut. I have 16, 13, and 11, and that's about as wide of a range as I can imagine. So you are a brave you are a brave soul. My kudos to you for doing that, and especially the foster. I am adopted. So anytime I hear a story about foster or adopted kids, that is absolutely that's a fantastic thing. So I want to go a little bit more and go back again a little bit and talk about you. We obviously want to talk about your fitness journey. So tell me a little bit about you, athletic, and stuff like that as a kid and a younger guy, teenager, and stuff like that.
Sure, absolutely. Back in high school, I didn't have I wanted to play football, but I never did. I wasn't confident in myself and shy around crowds and stuff like that, so I never joined football. I only got into weightlifting college.
Okay.
Still, it wasn't anything constant. It was just, I was at the gym whenever I timed it in between classes and all that. I only got into it heavily after college. And then met my wife 2010, and then we started going together. It just went from there. Classes, weightlifting, and
okay. Let me ask you a little bit. Confidence, you said was an issue. What was the source of the lack of confidence when you were in high school?
I don't know. I mean, I was one of those kids, the shy kids who sat in the back of the room, just make friends with like 2 or 3 people. Those are my close group of friends.
Okay.
I didn't think I was a popular kid. So I guess that's that. I wish I was one of the popular kids growing up in high school. A lot of us do. But and then you graduate and all that. You become an adult and you realize that all that wasn't. It's not worth it. Important in life.
Were you athletic as a kid, or was it partially a fitness thing, or just totally a mental thing?
I was a little bit overweight.
Okay.
And I would look up to the football player kids, and they were in good shape. I just never was one of those kids.
And what did you perceive as being in good shape? Because I think that's always interesting, kind of the idea of what kids as well as guys perceive to be in good shape. I mean, what was your perception of that you didn't have?
Big biceps, big legs,
okay.
Athletic.
Okay. So you were more of a scrawny kind of guy. Is that where we're going on this?
Yeah, it's scrawny. I had my stages. I was scrawny and I was chubby. That's in there.
Okay. And so you kind of went through high school with that. How did that? I mean, what was the mindset that you had to finally change that? You talk about getting into weightlifting a little bit when you were in college and stuff like that. What was your drive as far as going from that scrawny or going from that overweight or something like that to a more healthy lifestyle?
I guess in college I'm trying to get a girlfriend.
Motivation doesn't have to be deep. It just has to be there, whatever it is. Okay. And so you really pursued that as far as weightlifting, or you said no, actually it was kind of something more casual.
More casual.
Okay.
It's just, so that started off, wanting to get a girlfriend and stuff like that. But then with that, you get self-confidence and all that, and I just started feeling better about myself.
Mm-hmm.
And it just there.
Did you struggle with any of the usual things in college, the diet, the extra pounds, or anything like that?
Well, I commuted back and forth to college. I did eat out a lot and make the brightest choices, and then I was also part of a fraternity for a while. So, you have drinking and partying and stuff in there too. So I didn't make the brightest choice.
Yeah. Okay. And so you go from a point where you're kind of just casually doing a little bit of weightlifting and things like that. What shifted to where you got more serious about it? You said you met your wife. Was that part of it, or was it before you met her? Or
no, before I met her, I just spent a lot of time at the gym. It was something I enjoyed doing. So then I started seeing results. And when I met my wife, she thought I was a meathead when she first met me. we joke about that, but it was just something I've always enjoyed. Or after college, I enjoyed being in the gym and working out. And then when I met her, she worked out as well, so it was something we could do together. That just made it even more enjoyable.
And you guys got married back in 2011. You had a couple of kids from a prior relationship. Your wife said your wife did. How did the family aspect? 6 kids in 6 years, some of them before, but several of them not. How did that change in kind of household dynamics affect your ability to stay healthy, affect the diet, affect all of those kind of things?
Sure. I guess when the babies were younger, it affected it as far as we weren't able to work out together like we used to. And then of course with Gabriel, our 5-year-old, I gained 30 pounds. I went from I was in the best shape of my life at 165, and I gained 30 pounds, and that stayed with me until our last was born in 2015. So we weren't able to work out together as much. We would I would work out in the morning, and then when I was done, she would work out when she had time. And nutrition-wise, it wasn't until last year, September of last year, we met Ashley Stevens. I think you're watching. She introduced us to a health and fitness company, health and nutrition company. And after we joined that company, we started making the right choices nutrition-wise with isogenics. And we both lost weight together, my wife and I.
Okay. And you said that you were up to 190. How tall are you? Just to kind of have a perspective on this. Being 190, how tall of a guy are you?
5'10". Okay.
So that's pretty heavy. That's pretty heavy for a 5'10" guy. I'm just kind of envisioning compared to me and compared to you and stuff like that.
I have love handles, a beard, little big belly sticking out.
Now I've noticed on some of your Facebook stuff that it looks like you've done some competition. Is that correct? Am I correct on that?
Yes. After we lost the weight and stuff, we both started. We were comfortable in our own skin, and building was something I always thought was cool. So, and Amanda, she wanted to do it as well, but it was always a thought in the back of our mind. We never thought we would do it. But then after we lost the weight, it was something we decided to do together, and we hired a coach, a trainer at the gym, Jason Worthy, and he helped us get into competition weight.
And how long have you guys been doing competitions?
This year was our first year, and it's something we're hoping to get into. Okay.
And tell me what the hardest aspect of that is. I know a few people who do it. I don't know a lot of people who do it. What's the hardest aspect of competition?
Meal prep. Meal prepping was a big deal. We spent a lot of time in the kitchen. Working out, we would go a little bit heavier and stuff at the gym, but we work out a lot as it is. But I think the hardest part was the prep. I think Phoenix made it easier, the nutrition and all that, and the shakes and everything. But yeah, the hardest part was was the meal prep.
Is there something that's been really hard to give up during your competition phase? I know I hear a lot of stories about people having to give up their, some of their favorite foods. What's the hardest thing for you to give up? The thing that, you get through that competition and it's waiting for you backstage?
Pizza and sweets.
Okay. Any sweets in particular, or just sweets in general?
I'm gonna say ice cream.
Okay.
Ice cream. I love. Oh, and milkshakes. We love our cookout milkshakes.
Okay. So is that something that you're comfortable, that you've kind of gotten into a cycle that you can indulge a little bit once you're done, and then focus on the work to get back to where you need to be?
Yeah, I think what a lot of people don't realize, you can still indulge, but you have to give a little as well. You can't just indulge all day in order to be in shape. We still eat normal food.
Right.
Milkshake, you might work harder at the gym that day and the day after. You give up a snack. So you just got to make the right choice.
Yeah. When you're doing meal prep and you're counting every macro and counting every calorie and counting all those nutrients, what does that look like for your family? I mean, with 6 kids, are you making 6 packets of rice and chicken and broccoli, or are you fixing something for them and fixing that for you? Or, how does that work? I'm curious to know.
Sure. Yeah, that's a good question. We spend a lot of time in the kitchen anyway, getting them lunch and then snack and dinner and everything and breakfast. So while we're making their food, we would, make our food. And also the night before, my wife and I use MyFitnessPal.
Right.
So we would plan our day beforehand, so we know what we're getting into the next day.
Okay.
As far as macros and everything, we know what we have, we know what we can do, and knocked it out together.
Okay. And so it's not something where you're forcing them kind of the super healthy, or have they adapted a little bit to the healthy, or are they eating pretty normal, or how does that work?
Sure. No, they eat normal, healthy. We feed them healthy food. But of course, if they want ice cream at night, they could have had ice cream at night, and we watch them have ice cream.
That's the part I've got to imagine that's tough, is sitting there with those kids there having ice cream or having pretzels or having potato chips and just sitting there and being like, I got to walk away from it. What kind of a mindset do you develop to do that? Because I know that that's a struggle for a lot of people.
Sure. Yeah. With staying healthy and going to the gym and working out hard and making the right choices with food, you're doing that not only for yourself, you're doing that for your kids.
Right.
You're staying healthy, so you're going to be there longer to take care of them and be there for them when they need you. So that was my whole mindset. That is my mindset.
Yeah. So 2 questions I kind of want to wrap up with, and it's kind of the same 2 questions, and you kind of answered one, but I'm going to ask you again anyways. The biggest struggle as far as staying fit, what is it?
The biggest struggle as far as I would say, that's a good question. I guess just making the time to go to the gym. My wife and I now, we try to go early in the morning because we both have jobs as well. But, spend 45 minutes in the gym, I feel like a lot of people can, you can do that. As long as you find the time. You have to make you have to make sacrifices. Yeah. And getting up early is one of our sacrifices that we make.
Yeah, I agree. That's when I do it too. So that's got to be when it happens, I think, for the most part. And the last question, this is part of the podcast, is Defining Dad Bod. What does the phrase Defining Dad Bod mean to you?
For me, Defining Dad Bod is not going with the norm and settling for being unhealthy. Because in America, look around, so many people making unhealthy choices and everything. Defining Dad Bod is being healthy and showing people that you can get there us dads
Mm-hmm.
us parents can get there. You just have to make sacrifices, and you have to have that whole mindset that you're not just doing it for yourself, you're doing it for your children.
Yeah, and I think that's important. I think it's a balance between those two things, because it definitely is something that you are doing to stay healthy for yourself. But in the end, it is something that you're doing because of the fact, I mean, partially at least because you're a dad, and you want to be around longer for your family. So I agree. I think that's a great definition. So, would you do me a favor after we are done? Would you, if you've got one, if you would post in the comments to this interview, if you would post a picture of you, maybe when you were younger and you're kind of scrawny looking, we were talking a little bit, and then maybe one at your heaviest, and then one now, so we can kind of see that just for the transformation aspect of it. That'd be great if you could do that.
Absolutely.
Okay. Hey, thanks so much for your time. I appreciate it. I'm glad we worked it out. It was really good.
Thanks for having me.
Okay. Take care, man.
See ya.
Bye.
Awesome. I know that many of us can relate to feeling too scrawny to reflect the true man that lives inside of us. Thanks, Dan Gomes, for sharing your story there. Next up is Michael Patrick, and we're going to talk about how he went from over 300 pounds to being the guy who's working to grow muscle and get enough protein in his diet. Let's listen in.
There you are. Hey,
There we
Michael,
go.
how are you?
Hey, John, I'm doing good. My apologies.
Good. No problem at all. So I tell you what, I always tell people that it is the most awkward time of the whole interview is this point in time when I get on and I'm waiting for the other guy to get on, and then it's like it's got to wait for an invitation and stuff like that. So not a problem at all. So it was actually pretty fluid today. So, and where are you at now?
I live out in California. I live in Suisun City, which is kind of sort of far East Bay. It's around Fairfield, kind of in between the Bay Area and Sacramento.
Okay, great. Well, I got to tell you, I mean, one way maybe you've got a little bit of weight there, right, in that stellar strong beard. So that is a beard to behold. Let me tell you, it's very impressive. I had one about a third of that length about a year ago, and it just got too much for me to handle. So I admire guys who can do that, and I think it's almost to a point where at some point in time I joke with guys that we need to start having podcast episodes on beer maintenance. I'm gonna guess they probably already do somewhere, but
but we could definitely have that conversation.
But that's not what we're here to talk about today. So you and I are here to talk about, it is my understanding from the conversations that we've had that over the past period of how long now has your transformation been quote unquote officially going on?
Well, I've really been working on fitness and trying to get in shape, lose weight for about the last year.
Okay.
Really, I kicked things into gear last January. I'm sorry, not last January, but last July. So
Okay.
last summer, shortly after my daughter was born.
Okay.
Was when I really kind of first started focusing on diet. Initially really for the first 6 months or so,
Mm-hmm.
from about July 2017 till really about January this year, I really just kind of focused on losing weight.
Okay.
That was my primary goal. Before that, I was up to about 330 was my high.
Okay. Well, I want to jump back a little bit further, and that's a good teaser. We'll get back to that. But let's jump back a little bit further. Tell me a little bit about you as a child, as a teenager. Were you an active guy? Were you not an active guy? We get so many different stories of where people are when they start out younger. Where were you at?
Sure. Honestly, from a pretty young age, I was fairly overweight. When I was a kid, I was a little bit heavy. I was not super active. Definitely not as active as I could have been. Didn't play any sports really officially, like for school or anything. I played some football with friends and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But it certainly wasn't as active as I could have been.
Okay.
So there was I've been heavy pretty much my whole life, and there have been ups and downs through that. There have been periods where I've gotten particular motivation and done something about that to one degree or another. But it, you know, unfortunately, sometimes it just creeps back on you.
Right.
So
tell me a little bit about that. I mean, you talk about motivation, and motivation is always an interesting topic because a lot of people say motivation is what keeps you going. My personal opinion is motivation is very fleeting. You get a reason that you want to do something. That reason, maybe, and a lot of people refer to it as your why. A lot of people say you got to have a why, but your why can be very fleeting and it can be very temporary. You were motivated. What were some motivating events for you as far as like earlier on, and what about those events did not keep you going?
sure, no, that's a good question. You know, I think when you're younger, you know, when you're a young man, right, and you're still out your date, and that's a huge motivation. I think initially is you want to look better, you want to be in better shape, you want to be more attractive. So that's a huge motivation for you. But that can come and go. That can fluctuate. Sometimes that's when you're in a relationship or not. You know, while that should always be important, sometimes it doesn't stay priority like it should. I think also then as you get a little bit older, you know, that's still important, but another priority comes up, which is your health. You know, you start to look at, you know, health problems that you're, you know, getting. Maybe your blood pressure's getting a little bit high. You know, maybe you're starting to feel those aches and pains in the joint, you know. And so it gets to a point where you say, hey, I need to do something about this for myself.
Right.
And that's stronger motivation, but also sometimes not quite strong enough to always keep you, you know, dedicated to the path. And my most recent motivation, and what really has set me on the path as strongly as I've been over the course of the last year, the motivation there has been the birth of my daughter. You know, it's my wife and I's first child, and we're incredibly blessed and very excited. And it's really made me question the importance of my own health. One, in being able to keep up with her, you know, being able to be active. To be an active dad who's going to go out and be involved in the things that she wants to do, and also to be a good example, you know, of how to be healthy, how to be fit. You know, I want her to be aware of that as she gets older, so that she can be healthy and so, but really I want to be around as long as possible. That's the most important thing.
Exactly.
And, I wasn't doing that, you know, the way that I was going. You know, so.
Was there a defining moment in that reality with your daughter? And people have asked me, and I've often told the story of when my oldest was just a few weeks old. I remember at one point later on looking at a picture, and I remember just being really struck by how small she was and how big I was. I mean, was there a defining moment like that for you, or was it just more the general of like, wow, I'm going to be a dad kind of a thing?
You know, I can think of those exact same pictures. I
Yeah.
have those same pictures where you're holding your little
Yes.
child. They're just tiny, and you're bigger than maybe you want to be at the time.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
You know, I think when she was born, honestly, just even, I mean, really, when she was very first born, I got to take her in the nursery, like right after she was born.
Right.
Holding her there, and her eyes were open, and it just, I don't know, something kind of clicked in my head that just it made me say, like, I need to do this better.
Right.
I need to do this a bit better, and
Okay.
and that involves taking care of myself, so that I can be here and be as good a dad as I need to be for her.
And so with that, tell me a little bit, where were you at physically at the point in time when she was born?
Well, you know, not great. You know, my weight had gotten up as high as it had ever been in my life. Like I said, 330.
Okay.
With high point. Now I'm a pretty tall guy. I'm about 6'3".
Okay.
So people tell me things like, "Oh, you carry it well," you know, you know, so I can pack on a lot of pounds, but still, that was high, and that had come about just because of not paying attention to my diet, a relatively sedentary lifestyle, I'm an artist, an illustrator, and a graphic design artist by trade, and so I do a lot of sitting in front of a computer. And so that had definitely contributed. I had also I'd had a knee injury in 2015 where I dislocated my knee. I popped my patella out of socket. I was on crutches and a cane for about a year, and then it was very sore after that, and then very limited movement. So again, excuses, but yeah, I'd let it go too far.
Right.
I was feeling a lot, a lot of back pain, a lot of joint pain, like you. So
yeah, and it's always fun to ask the questions. You talk about your diet not being that well. What were your vices? For me, and I mean, I tell the story. For me, the thing that I had to give up when I got serious about losing weight was goldfish. And it's the funniest thing ever but it's one of those foods you feed your kids, and you just have no concept of how many goldfish you eat before you're done. So I mean, for you, and even before, what were some of your bigger food struggles?
I think for me, like snack foods definitely are one of them. I like potato chips. I got to admit what is it? The salt and pepper kettle chips.
Oh yeah.
One of my favorite.
Oh yeah.
Bag of, and it wasn't even necessarily that I was eating horribly. I think, definitely there were a lot of things in my diet that I should have limited or cut out. But just eating too much, eating just way more than I needed, and not really being aware of just how much that was. When I was one of the things that has really helped in my diet is tracking my food. Doing a MyFitnessPal, putting everything into an app where I can see exactly how many calories I'm eating, how much protein I'm getting, all that kind of stuff. And that's really opened my eyes, because prior to that, I don't think I really had a conception of how many calories were in everything.
Right.
And things that you don't consider being super high calorie maybe, and even are healthy for you, you can overeat it, and even if you're eating healthy things, if you eat too much healthy things, that's still going to stall your progress as far as weight loss is concerned.
So what did you do in your initial stages of your weight loss and your nutrition? What steps did you take? What changes did you make?
Well, initially I wanted to hit it pretty hard, and I wanted to make a really drastic change. And at the time, again, last July, I came across some interviews that Penn Jillette had done about a book that he wrote, Presto, where he lost over 100 pounds. And he'd done it very quickly and very drastically. And I've always been a fan of Penn's, and so that kind of motivated me. And I said, okay, I'm going to try and do it like that. One of the things he says that he did initially is an extremely limiting diet, where you pick one food. And this isn't meant to be like a long-term thing. It's a short-term where for a number of days even, you only eat one food, one simple food. His I believe was potatoes, where he ate just nothing but potatoes.
Wow.
And what this does, it's not meant to be like a healthy long-term diet again, but what it does is it kind of resets your palate. You're so used to all the salt and all the sugar and all the intense flavors that you get from all the the processed foods that you're eating, you don't even realize how intense that is. And when you go to eating something just very simple, one real food, something bland and regular for even a couple of days, it really resets it. It kind of brings you back to where if you have anything savory or sweet, you have a piece of fruit and it seems incredibly sweet to you after you've been eating potatoes. Or for me, I did beans. I cooked my own black beans in a crock pot and just ate beans. And you know what? I only made it literally for like 2 days before I couldn't take it anymore. I said, I absolutely can't do this. But from there, everything else, having gotten rid of, again, kind of all the expectations that your palate has of having a really high sweet or high salt diet, it was easier for me to kind of eat simple. And I didn't focus on. Oh, sorry.
No, I was going to say. So, how you did beans? How long did you do only beans? And I mean, quantity of that were you eating?
Literally, I could only stand it for 2 days. And oh yeah, well, and expectations like I'm going to go for a week, I'm going to go for maybe 2 weeks and see what happens. Like I think that's what Penn did. I think he did at least a week, and I couldn't stand it.
Yeah.
No, I broke quickly, but I still feel it served its purpose in that it really kind of it simplified my palate and it made me very appreciative of anything other than beans. And so the diet that I did was really just kind of trying to focus on natural foods. I've tried a lot of diets before. I've done a lot of diets where you try to limit a certain food. I've done kind of keto style where you limit a lot of carbs, and I've done even the opposite of that. I've been vegan for periods of time where you limit a lot of other things, and I've kind of tried both of the extremes, and ultimately I found that any diet where you're cutting any one thing completely out, it doesn't work for me personally. I know people it has worked for, but for me personally, I always end up craving that one thing so much, and then ultimately overindulging on it. And so really just trying to find balance, eating good food, whole foods, simple food, tracking my calories and macros. So I actually am aware of, the data about what I'm eating has been, again, very useful. And at this point, I've lost about 70 pounds. From 330, I'm down now to about 260, and that goes down. Well, thank you. And it's still, and I've still got a ways to go. I don't feel like this transformation is done at all. I still have a lot of progress that I want to make. Ultimately, I'd like to get down. I'm shooting for like 220, and we'll see what that looks like. I'm lifting, and so I'm building muscle at the same time. And if I can get down to 220, I'll have lost 110 pounds and a third of my body weight. So
that's fantastic.
That's the goal.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. So let me ask you this then: in your nutrition in your first few months, what were some things you just completely cut out?
Well, the stuff that I cut out almost entirely. I did stop eating dairy. I don't eat a lot of dairy, so I don't really drink a lot of milk. A little bit. I don't eat a lot of cheese. And most of that is kind of just extra fat calories, that aren't necessarily awful. I eat a little bit of butter, some grass-fed Kerrygold butter. I'll have a little bit of that. But initially, I didn't really eat any dairy. It's interesting because a lot of people I know that have lost a lot of weight have gone on to keto and have gone on to these very, very high protein, very high fat, very low carb diets. And I know a lot of people really worked well for. I tried it, and it didn't work great for me, but I think that was my own fault because I think I was maybe still just eating too much and looking at the calories because I was like, hey, I can have all the cheese that I want. So I'm going to make these, super cheesy, cauliflower or mashed potatoes that were probably way higher calorie than I was even aware of. And I was just eating a ton. So I was like, oh yeah, it's totally low carb. But I lost a ton of weight on a very high carb diet, and it's interesting is like in my opinion, carbs are not necessarily the enemy; it's the type of carbs that you're looking at.
Correct. You're absolutely correct.
I lost a lot of weight eating, again, like nearly vegan for a while, eating a very low protein, very high carb diet, but eating vegetables, eating nothing but vegetables and legumes and a little bit of rice and that's pretty high carb. But I lost a lot of weight eating just like that. However, I've sort of, I'm not doing that anymore because ultimately I didn't feel like I was getting enough protein. And my focus has changed a little bit, in the last 3 months or so. Initially, I was very focused on just losing weight. Now I'm focused on losing weight and also trying to build muscle. And so in those interests, I'm trying to get a lot more protein and I know that I know you can have a very healthy, high protein diet as a vegan. But I think it's very challenging, and I was having a hard time doing it personally. So, respect to those that do, but it wasn't quite serving my goals at the time.
Right. Yeah, and it is very challenging, and I do think, especially now that you're talking about the weightlifting and the resistance training, I think that, I mean, a balanced diet is so essential if you're in the gym on a high level basis. I mean, you're helping the muscle recover, you're helping the muscle grow. But if you're doing something like that, you've got to have the protein just as much as you've got to have the carbs and some healthy fats. Have you developed any new tastes or new favorite foods? Anything that you just are like, I can't believe I've lived my life without this kind of thing?
I don't know. I think that once you get away from eating a lot of processed food, a lot of things with a lot of added salt,
right,
and added sugar, that natural, healthy, homemade food seems a lot more savory, and it seems a lot. I think your sense of taste in general really increases. I'm extremely blessed that my wife is an incredible cook, and she makes fantastic homemade food for us all the time. I mean, we really don't eat out hardly at all, unless it's some sort. So the things that I crave now that I tend to overeat on are that are still like not bad, but have a little too much sugar is fruit. I like fruit a lot. Like I would eat way too much fruit every day. I would eat melon and just pineapple and
that's
bananas.
the ticket. That's the ticket.
And not bad stuff, right? I mean,
right.
That's not awful. However, I have found, and in trying to lose weight at this point, I am kind of trying to lean towards a more low carb, and again, not necessarily low carb, but low sugar. And those are still very sugary. So,
yes,
having 5 pieces of fruit a day, maybe higher on the carbs that I'm trying to get.
So yeah.
I lower.
Take me through a little bit. You've talked about resistance training. You've talked about exercise, and I mean, as much as we say you can't out-exercise a bad diet, obviously activity is just as important of a piece of this puzzle as the nutrition. Over the last year, what has your exercise, what has your cardio or strength routines, what do they look like? Where did you find them, and things like that?
Sure. I definitely agree that, I think I heard a man say exactly that you can't work. And that's true. And I found that very true in my weight loss is it while exercise is incredibly valuable and necessary and so important, it will not make up for not eating right or eating too much. I can't do enough exercise to just eat however I want and have that make up the difference for it. But as far as exercise, I started off pretty light. Honestly, when I began, I was in pretty bad shape. My joints were in bad shape. It was very stiff. My back was in not great shape, and I hadn't done any lifting in a long time. Obviously, working against my own body weight was pretty tough because just even doing stuff like push-ups or even certain yoga positions and trying to gain some mobility and flexibility were pretty tough initially, just because I was so heavy and the muscle to weight ratio was pretty poor. But I started off doing that again, kind of some yoga training, really just stretching and mobility, trying to get to a point where I was able to move a little bit better. And started doing some walking initially on a treadmill, and because my knees were pretty sore, and I had a pretty hard time just like getting out on the street and walking. So initially did some treadmill walking. The weightlifting that I started doing once I started looking at that a little bit more towards the beginning of this year, at first was kind of based on the old weightlifting training that I knew from high school, you know, from being a teenager, which is sort of the gym splits, you know, the muscle isolations. I went from, you know, I used to work out at a gym. Now I am building a home gym. So I have a garage gym, and there was a transition as far as what I was able to do initially, just because of the gear that I had.
Sure.
So, you know, actually I didn't have a lot of weights. I didn't have any Olympic weights. I didn't have a cage. I didn't, you know, I was working with, you know, even very first stuff that was donated to me. I had a couple of friends that just gave me some old weight sets, very graciously, for me to use. But my training wasn't very focused. I was kind of just doing exercises,
Okay.
and kind of focusing on single muscles till they hurt, you know, on any given day, right? And I know that you know, that's a style of lifting, certainly, but I wasn't seeing a lot of results with it, and ultimately I ended up kind of injuring my elbow. I have what is it, a lateral epicondylitis, sort of a tennis elbow, a golfer's elbow, that I believe came from really overworking my biceps, doing curls. You know, I would do a curl day, and I would do all the curls. I would do preacher curls and sitting isolation curls and standing barbell curls, and just really hit the biceps with a lot of curls. And it got to a point where, you know, and I think it was partially also a form issue. I think I was rolling my wrist forward, pulling instead of keeping the wrist in more of a straight position. But it really caused some tendon pain in there, to a point where I stopped doing curls for a while, for a good month, and I still actually feel a little bit of pain in there. So my approach has changed some. I'm trying to do a little bit better research on what I'm doing. A friend actually turned me on to the 5x5 program, Strong Lifts 5x5. And having read that and looked into that a little bit, I'm just starting to work through that program.
Okay.
So taking a very different approach to lifting, using a lot of, you know, large compound motions, exercises using a lot of muscles, working a lot more with a barbell than I ever have. A lot of this stuff is things, frankly, that I've always kind of avoided.
Yeah.
You know, to be honest. I mean, doing squats, doing deadlifts. Those were things that I avoided in the gym. I used to be, you know, one of the guys who would go to the gym and just kind of, you know, mostly work the machines and just kind of do the ones I liked, and you know, stuff like squats and deadlifts take a lot more precise form.
Yes.
And really kind of and just knowing you can't just sit down and pull on a lever and have it.
Exactly. You're absolutely correct. You're absolutely correct. Yeah. So you said you started at 330. You're at 260 now.
Yep.
And you're hoping to get down to 220. What else? And do you have like kind of like a time frame that you'd like to accomplish it by, or is it pretty much you're good with the time that it takes, or you know, how do you perceive that? And I guess the other question to follow that up with would be, you know, once you get there, let's say you hit that magic number, then what?
Sure. You know, obviously, I'd like the time frame to be as soon as possible. I mean, you know, sooner than later, right?
Right.
But I've also found that results that are maintained are ones that are taken more gradually. You know, that you know, when I hit a very extreme diet, when I limit my calories down to something ridiculous like 1,500 calories a day or something, I lose weight quicker. I absolutely do. But I've also found that I can't maintain that.
Right.
You know, I'll do that for a week, and then I'll go crazy on the weekends. I'll be like, oh, I'm going to have a cheat day, and that turns in. And roll from there. And I find that I undo all the you know, results that I saw during the week. You know,
right.
So you know, my weight looks like a heartbeat monitor. Beep 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 beep. You know, I mean, it's up and down, up and down. And so hitting it, you know, not quite as hard, you know,
right.
1,000 calories is a very still a reasonable amount of calories,
Yeah.
you know. And just, you know, I don't know. So as far as the time frame, it's going to happen when it does. You know, I'm going to keep consistent if I can. You know, I'd like to see it within the end of the year. I mean, I'd love to say by year to see that, but I'm not sure if that's, you know, realistic. I have found that since I've started lifting, you know, my weight is not going down as consistently as it was. And I am putting on muscle, although I can't, you know, I know it's not that much in actual pounds, but it is weight that's going on, that's working in, you know, counter to that fat that's getting lost. So I think that's been slowing the progression. And also it gets tougher the lower I get. You know, when I first started losing weight, when I was over 300 pounds and I cut all sugar and all processed food out of my diet, like I lost that first 30 pounds fast. Like, you know, initially it goes down very quickly, and it's kind of tapered off since then.
Yeah. So what, after you hit that, what's next? Because that was something I found out was I got to a point where it was like, I realized I couldn't keep losing weight all my life. And it was like, okay, now what do I want to do? What other goals or ideas or crazy things are brewing up in that head as far as what you'd like to do once you're down there?
For sure. You know, ultimately the number is just a number, you know, and really what we're looking for is health and to live comfortably and to live long and to live not in pain. You know, I think that's the main thing, is just to not have the aches and pains that drag you down every day when you're unhealthy and you're unmobile.
Right.
You know, for me, once I feel like I'm at a good weight, really the focus is going to be fitness, is going to be building some muscle. You know, I've always wanted to be bigger than I am now, just as far as my musculature. And I have a decent frame for it. You know, like I said, I'm a big guy. I'm pretty broad build. And so if I could trim that down and actually put some muscle on it, you know, I feel like it would be okay. So that's really, you know, going to be a focus, and just being more active in general. You know, getting out and being able to do things. I want to get out and do more camping and hiking. I want to, you know, I'm starting to have a little kind of like a sparring club sort of that I've started with my brother, where we're just very good-natured brothers doing a little bit of boxing, you know, and
fun.
Just taking some jabs at each other, and it is a lot of fun, you know, and that's exactly for exercise and for fun. It's not any kind of, you know, fight club or anything. Like I said, this is my brother. But that's something that I couldn't have done. You know, that's something I couldn't a year ago.
Right.
And also I'm looking forward to doing things with my daughter. You know, I want to get out and I want to be able to run after my daughter. You know, there was a time after my knee injury where, you know, me and my wife were talking about having a child. And one of my honest concerns was that I wasn't going to be able to keep up with a kid that was so damaged that I was hobbling around and so fat, and you know, and I was like, if a toddler takes off in front of me, I'm not going to be able to catch him. You know, like that. I'm not going to be able to, you know, go out and you know, kick a ball around with my child, and that, like I said, that affected my thinking. That's not the relationship that I want to have with my kid.
Right. Right. 2 questions left, and I ask these questions to everybody that I talk to. First of all, what was your biggest struggle throughout your transformation?
I think the biggest struggle is, well, as far as diet consistency. You know, I think that's a big one for me. You know, eating good all the time. You know, like I can eat good 80% of the time, and then if I don't eat good that other 20% of the time, I slide back a lot and I lose a lot of progress. And so, I mean, I like to eat. You know, I'll be honest. I like good food. I like good beer. You know, I like a lot of things that you know, make my body want to hold on to weight. And so I think just, you know, having the consistent willpower to, especially through things like through holidays and birthdays and, you know, family get-togethers and whatnot, where it's so much part of the culture that we have to enjoy delicious foods, and a lot of them anytime we're celebrating anything. You know,
Right.
that's part of the culture that we have. We eat good food. We have desserts when it's your birthday, when it's a holiday, when we're celebrating anything, and
Right.
kind of, you know, and maintaining, you know, because that's also, you know, you want to be able to enjoy those times with your family and with your friends, and darn it, have a piece of cake on somebody's birthday.
Exactly.
But then also not let that get out of hand and be like, well, I had a piece of cake, so, you know, now let's order a pizza, and you know, let it get out of hand from there.
Yeah,
So.
exactly. And the last question we always like to ask on these for the podcast is, you know, we talk a lot on here, and it's the name of the podcast and everything like that. Defining Dad Bod. What does that mean to you?
Well, you know, when I became a dad, I of course became like aware of the term dad bod, right? And I was like, okay, well, I guess I got one of those, you know, because it's not generally a flattering statement, right?
Right.
Like usually, well, that's a dad bod. That's not a compliment that much. You know, it's kind of just an admission of like, you're gonna get kind of pudgy as you get older as a dad.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think you have to. Obviously, you don't have to. A lot of guys have proven, yourself and a lot of other, you know, fitness guys have shown us, hey, like you don't have to just let go of your fitness, and you can have any kind of dad bod you want, you know. So it was a goal of mine when I became a dad. I said, I want to get into great shape to a point where like I am in reasonably impressive shape, and then I want to get a shirt that says dad bod, and I want to wear it, ironically, because I want to have a great bod, you know, and have that be the dad bod. Redefine, hey, this is what a dad bod can look like. That you can still be in shape, you can still raise your kids, and still take care of yourself.
Yeah, great. Hey, listen, I appreciate your time. I know that you told me yesterday that this is nap time, so this is sacred time for you. I don't think we didn't even get to mention the fact that you are a stay-at-home dad. So nap time is a sacred time for you. So I appreciate you giving up that sacred time, and there's probably a few more dishes in the sink and a few other things that need to get done before your daughter wakes up. So I appreciate that. One thing I was going to ask you, and we always like to ask people to do this, if you wouldn't mind posting in the comments a picture of you now and a picture of you at your heaviest, just so that it's kind of, I mean, not a before and after. In your case, it's a before and on the way. But I mean, if you would do that, that would be awesome.
I'll see what I can find. You know, it's funny because when I was at my heaviest, I got to a point where I did not want many pictures taken with me, and I certainly,
it's true.
Considered like, oh, I should take a really, you know, ridiculous fat picture, and I never did because I didn't want to see it.
Yeah.
So I have pictures of me at least 280 or so. So, you know, I've got some that are a little chubbier than now. So I'll see what I can do.
Whatever you can do. Thank you so much for your time. It's been awesome. You've given some great tips and some encouragement. Keep us posted, and I mean, let us know how things are going. And I mean, if you hit that goal and get on some other activities, let us know. We'd love to kind of, you know, follow up with you sometime and see where you're at in a few months or 6 months or something like that. So I appreciate that, and thanks a lot.
Thank you for having me. It's been great talking with you.
No problem. Mike, it's been great. Once again, this is John Bauer. It's been great to interview Mike for Defining Dad Bod. We are here on Bauer Power Fitness. If there's anything we can do to help you, please shoot me a message. But, you know, just take these stories to heart, enjoy them, and hopefully they will provide everybody some encouragement and inspiration. Thanks a lot, Mike.
Hey, thanks. Take care.
Take care, you too.
Man, I'm telling you, if you haven't checked out the actual video with Bauer Power interviewing Michael Patrick, you have to check it out. That beard is amazing, as is his story of transforming himself. Now let's talk to Ryan Benson. Ryan had some significant challenges overcoming eating habits ingrained in him as a child. Let's listen to how he overcame those obstacles.
Welcome. I am glad to have you on. For full disclosure, Ryan and I are good friends, so this may go down the goof direction at one point or another.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make that disclaimer right now. But we've known each other, and we've known each other through another Facebook group, and we've actually had a couple other guys on from this group we had from the Dad's Edge Alliance. You and I are both members. We have met over there. We've gotten to know each other. We've become pretty good friends. We talk a couple times a week. And one of the things that we found out, I think probably pretty early on when we talked, we found out that we had kind of both had a similar fitness or physical journey. That was kind of one of the things that we found out. So when the opportunity came, I wanted to talk to you and get your story, because everybody's story is a little bit different, and we've got some ends to your story to talk about a little bit. But let's go back initially and kind of fill us in a little bit. I always like to ask people initially, as a kid, as a young adult, were you somebody that was an active kid as a young adult, or were you more sedentary, or what was kind of the first part of your story?
I very quickly got into sports, and so I was active. I was, t-ball at 5 years old, and then playing football, through my teenage years and high school and all that. I always liked to, lift and be active and so forth. So yeah, I was pretty active as a kid.
Okay. And with that activity, obviously, to have a transformation story, something happened.
Yeah.
What was that something for you?
I graduated high school. It's interesting. If I go back a little bit, I like to kind of go back to how I ate as a kid. I grew up in a home to where it was like, if it's on your plate, you're cleaning your plate. And, when your family is Sicilian, you eat good food.
Yeah.
And my mom, my mom, she could cook like no other, still can cook like no other. And so that started the mindset. And so when you're active and you're eating like that, it's perfectly fine. But I graduated high school and I stopped doing all that stuff. And I still ate. And I gained a lot of weight very fast.
Okay. And let me ask you, as a Sicilian, what was your favorite thing that Mom made?
Oh, I love my mom's chicken cacciatore. I love the chicken cacciatore. It just, but there's another meal that she made that was not Sicilian. It was chicken and biscuits. And I think we might have talked about that briefly. It's like, it's like the chicken pot pie with the, 10 biscuits in there and all, and, it's like 3,000 calories per, plate.
Well, and you're in Texas now. Where are you from originally? Because that's a southern thing.
It is a southern thing, and I was born in Dallas, and so I've lived in Dallas-Fort Worth most of my life.
Okay,
so,
but interestingly enough, my childhood, there was a restaurant in my hometown that served chicken and biscuits, and I remember never being that fascinated by it. I didn't like it, but it's kind of odd that something southern like that ended up in a small town in northern Illinois. So
that is interesting.
Yeah, I do remember that though. So kind of give us a time frame then. You said after you got out of high school, how much weight did you gain? What did you do that you weren't just as active? Was it just not being in organized sports, or what was it?
I just, to be quite frank, life. I mean, I was, by the time I was 17, 18 years old, I was raising my brother and sister. I was working full time. I was going to school full time. I was, I was very active in life, but man, I coped with eating and, didn't work out, didn't do any of that stuff anymore. So, I mean, within the first year of graduating, I gained a good 40, 50 pounds easy.
Okay.
And so that kind of started this snowball effect that ended up being a pretty bad place by the time I was married, So.
Okay. and just in kind of frame of reference, how tall are you? I always got to ask this question so people can kind of have a picture. How tall of a guy are you?
I wish my wife were here right now, because we joke about this all the time. I grew up thinking, I was 5'10", but apparently I'm not, according to my wife. So I'm 5'9", and at 5'9", the heaviest I got was 270 pounds at 5'9". Wow. And that was like 23, 24 years old. So I couldn't walk up a flight of stairs without getting out of breath. It was a bad deal.
was it just something that kind of happened? I mean, was it just that you really weren't even thinking about it, or, I mean, it seems hard at that age to think about it. I mean, for me, I was always a heavy guy, but Brad Coleman thinks Brad Coleman's going to question the 5'9".
We'll talk about that later, Brad.
Yeah. I mean, but I mean, was it just something that kind of happened, and you just just before it's like, oh wow, here I am, or was it?
Mm-hmm. It's so with what I do now, and I do so much behavior modification now. Looking back at it, hindsight, it was really a complete neglect behaviorally. I mean, I didn't care about what I was going to eat. It wasn't a priority to me. Longevity, living long, and for my family, and all those concepts that I think of now, almost 40 years old, I didn't care about that stuff. But kind of the beginning wake-up call was I'm almost 24. I've been married at that time. I've been married about a year. I can't walk a flight of stairs without being out of breath. I'm on blood pressure medication. I start looking at my family history, and I'm like, my dad's had all these heart attacks. My grandfather died on my mom's side from a massive coronary event, and I mean, it just started to begin to get in my head. And so I really had to deprogram myself, because I programmed myself so long to be unhealthy,
Right.
So.
And how did you do that?
Well, it was kind of I loved your comment about CrossFit yesterday when you plugged this, when you said we're going to ask, is CrossFit
is it a cult? Yeah.
Is it a cult? And
we'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah. It really was just, it was, I need to do something. And so I lifted growing up and all that. I knew in my head all this stuff to do, but the actual consistent decision to do something, at least one thing every single day that was healthy for me, that wasn't there. So I just started running. I'm just going to run, and that's how I got started with it.
Okay. And was it just like outdoor running, like a mile or a couple of miles? And did you enjoy it, or was it something that was a real struggle to keep disciplined to do? Oh, don't freeze on me, Brad. Ryan. Don't freeze on me. You're freezing on me. Oh, dear. We told him not to. Ryan? Okay. Ryan, if you could hear me. Yep, there we go. Okay, let's get you back on here, buddy. There you go. See, I told you.
You're right.
Don't move.
You're so right.
Move.
I didn't do anything.
We're doomed every week. It's one of these tests. It's one of these tests. It's like, can you handle this situation?
Right. Yeah. I love technology, but sometimes technology doesn't love me.
Seriously? Yeah. Seriously. Okay, you're talking lift or something every day, so go ahead.
Running, yeah. You were asking me, was it running? I first started, and it was just like, I'm going to run like to the stop sign, and I did enjoy it. I ran a little bit in high school when I was in track, and at that time I really didn't enjoy it. It didn't feel good. It hurt. It was miserable. It was hot. There was nothing fun about it. And so I just kept on day in, day out. And so it took me, I was running for about a year consistently, and I got up to about 20 miles a week running, which was great. And I was pretty proud of myself, but I wasn't losing weight. So.
And why do you think that was?
Well, I didn't change. I was running, but I didn't change my eating. You can't outwork a bad diet.
I knew you were going to say it. I knew that's what you were going to say. That's exactly it. That's exactly it. And we talk about that all the time. You cannot. Yeah. You can bust it every single day. And if you're going home and throwing on ice cream and pizza and stuff like that, it will not matter. So So what got you to switch the diet part then?
So imagine me, when I was running, I was about 250 pounds.
Right.
Okay. Running that much, pretty consistently.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, my joints, my knees started hurting. I mean, my back and my hips started hurting. That much impact, you know, and so I started having heart palpitations.
Oh.
And and I didn't know why. And so I went to the doctor and got on a monitor and so forth. And essentially what came out was that my doctor said that your heart is really healthy, but you have a lot of weight and your heart is trying to kickstart itself, you know, and it's just not in sync. It's not doing well. And you have to lose that weight. Yeah. So I found CrossFit and it confused my body so much. And the weight just literally melted off.
What about it confused your body? And I mean, most people know what CrossFit is, but I mean, I want to delve a little bit and get what's your perception of it.
With the running, I was able to get into a pace where I could just run as long as I needed to, and it wasn't really that intense. It wasn't, you know, that was one reason also why I wasn't losing weight. But with CrossFit, I did get sucked into the culture. And the culture for me was, I don't have to eat the way I've been eating. And there's a workout regimen out there that I've never done before. And it involved things that I had never done before, like gymnastics, and the endurance aspect of it was different. And so I just got hooked. And so I changed my diet. And then I, you know, was consistent with my workouts. And in about 6 months, I lost 50 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
it transformed my life.
That's awesome. So you went from about, 270 down to 220?
Yeah, about.
Wow. And how long ago is this?
Almost 6 years ago.
Okay.
Yep. And then I recently had another weight loss kind of stage, and have maintained that for a while now. But life
and how
changes.
far are you down now?
Oh, I'm at I'm at 190, 195 now.
Okay.
So,
that's awesome.
You know, go ahead.
No, that's awesome. That's fantastic. So you not only did CrossFit, but what else did you do with CrossFit?
So part of my personality.
This is where the cult part comes in.
Okay, it's not just the cult; it is my personality, though. That I kind of do this. Yeah. I fell in love with it, and I was like, okay, I really want to, you know, I want to know it all. I want to get, you know, knee deep in the mess of this, and you know, and so I went and I got my L1 CrossFit certification, and about a year and a half or so into working out in CrossFit, I started coaching. And I've been hooked since. So.
You know, and I guess I have to confess. And I'm surprised you're not throwing this in my face. I guess I have to confess. My situation is really not that different.
No, it's not.
Because, you know, I'm sitting here and you're talking about this. And I'm like, I got to eat crow on this one. Because what did I do? I went out, I started lifting heavy. And I was like, the next thing you know, I'm certified to train other people in lifting.
Right, so, right. Yeah. I mean,
guilty. Okay. I can still give you a hard time about the cult of it, but I can't.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, and this is probably a question that people may seriously want to know. What is it about it that people think is this cult thing? And I mean, I know it's a joke, but there's some seriousness to it because you hear it all the time.
Yeah.
What is it? Is it because people are like, oh my gosh, this is what we have to do for the rest of our lives, or what aspect of it is that it makes it that way, in your opinion?
Man, that's such a hard question. I think that CrossFit, you know, if you look at my story, CrossFit attracted an individual that had kind of felt like he had done everything else, you know, and it was something new. And there were some elements there, you know, a friend of mine that I was young, worked with my wife at the time, and they happened to start talking about CrossFit because my friend was looking to CrossFit. Well, then we reconnected via Facebook, and then, there are elements to it all that kind of, there's a story to everything. But I think that CrossFit attracts personality types that, in general, that can be pretty driven. It's interesting though, when I first started this, the place that I first started is very different from the place I'm at right now. Whereas the place I'm at right now is we focus a lot more on overall health and wellness, a holistic approach. When I was younger CrossFitting, I wanted to lift everything as heavy as I could, and I wanted to be as, we used to say we want to achieve our genetic potential. And now I'm not looking to lift the world. I'm looking to be healthy and active and engaged and purposeful and intentional with my family, with my life, you know? And so I am a very driven person, which in the CrossFit world, there are a lot of driven people. And I think that intensity kind of comes across as very cultish. But then let me just put it this way. If something completely changes your life, not just your physical health, but your mentality and, and equips you with the ability to have the confidence to achieve things that you never thought you could achieve before, you're going to fall in love with that.
True.
And I think that, I could look at a lot of different workout regimens and say, that's kind of cultish because, I mean, like yours, what you do, I mean, it's saved your life and it continues to better who you are. So you are absolutely in love with it, So,
And I went through a very similar thing when I was doing triathlons. That's as much of a cult as CrossFit. I will fully admit it, but it's just, it's one of those things. It's fun to give people who do it grief because it's kind of like the thing that it is this kind of cult. So
and it certainly is in a lot of areas. Yeah, it certainly is that way.
So what's next for you?
Well, let's see here. I've been actually in a few days. I have to take my L2 certification. Because I can't stop, I want to learn as much as I can. And I love coaching. I love teaching people. I love equipping them. So I'm going to continue to coach for as long as I can. I'm going to continue to
Great. Awesome. Anyway. We'll wrap it up with two questions. I always like to ask the same two questions to people. Out of your whole experience and your whole journey, your biggest struggle?
I think looking in the mirror is my biggest struggle. So it's, when I lived most of my adult life heavy and trying to fool myself. And ignore what I really needed to do that was important and taking care of myself. And so that programs your mind to see certain things. And it's hard. It's so hard. And this is why my life is behavioral modifications now. It's changing behaviors, coaching people and helping people to move away from what kept them stuck. I look in the mirror now and at 190 pounds, I still see the 270-pound guy.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't, and then sometimes I do, and it's a real kind of mess up. You're working this hard, and you feel. I can genuinely say I'm healthier now than I was at 18 years old. But to still see, that.
Sure.
That's hard. So.
And the final question. We're all here. We're talking about defining dad bod. That's the thing.
Yeah.
What does that mean to you?
Defining dad bod. I think for me, it's a philosophy. For me, it's I do all these physical things to be healthy and strong and so forth. But defining dad bod is for me. I think of my kids. I think of one day when we're all sitting around the table, whether it's Christmas or Thanksgiving, and my grandkids are there, and my adult kids are there, and we're talking about stories of when we were all younger. I want my kids to look back and say, man, Dad always tried his best. He always worked and tried to be the best version of himself. And so when it comes to fitness, you know, I want my kids to see that this is not just some habit, that this is who I am now.
Right.
Because I'm trying to stay as far away from who I was, you know. And so I'm gonna, every day, I'm gonna try to do something. And I'm gonna teach that to them too. Like, so now when we have, and I don't mean to go off on this, but I do want to say, when I was a kid, it was everything is on your plate, clean your plate, okay? At, you know, 18, 19 years old, I loved that. Now, when I teach my kids, I teach them balance. Let's have balanced meals. Yeah, do you want ice cream? Sure, we can have some ice cream. Yeah, but, you know, have we had a balanced meal, you know?
Right.
Or we just, you know, had ice cream.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and so I want them to have that mindset of, no, I'm not going to clean my plate just because, you know, because dad told me to and I have to do that. No, I mean, my dad instilled in me this idea of having a intentional balanced meal so that I can be healthy, you know?
Yeah. You know, it's a great thing you're talking about, your kids sitting around the table when you're older. There was a group of us this past summer at the conference that I was at. They were talking about when your kids are 30 years old and they're out someplace with their friends, what are they going to say about you? And that's an incredibly powerful thing to think about, whether it's fitness, whether it's mindset, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Thinking about what are your kids going to say about you as a dad? And one of the things, are they going to say, my dad really stayed healthy. My dad tried new things. My dad did something that he didn't know if he could accomplish. It goes so much further beyond just the physical. I mean, the physical is an important part, but it goes so much further beyond that. And, you know, you'd sitting there talking about what are we going to talk about when we're, you know, around the table at Thanksgiving with my grandkids. Right. It's the same thing. And it's a great mindset to have as you go through and discuss that. So, hey, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Will you do me a favor? When this posts, would you in the comments put like a before and after picture up there?
Oh gosh. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
I have to find one.
Conquer that fear of still seeing the old body. Conquer that fear.
I love how you just gave me a challenge.
I can relate to it. But yeah, if you would do that, that'd be great.
Okay.
So thanks a lot, man. I appreciate it.
You're welcome, brother. I'll talk to you later.
Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.
Man, Ryan, more power to you. I wish I could try your mom's chicken cacciatore, that's for sure. But nice job teaching yourself how to look at nutrition differently. Now let's listen in to the story of my man Tony Martel, who had to admit to himself that alcoholism was a significant part of his life and that he had to overcome that obstacle if he was going to be the dad who showed up for his daughters.
Tony, I want to thank you for taking time this afternoon to talk with us. I chatted with you yesterday, and last night when I posted a live announcement of this, your story is really, it's always fun and it's always amazing to hear these transformation stories, but it's always great to hear a story that is not only just a physical transformation, but really in your situation, man, I'd call it a life transformation from what you have told me. And it's always very encouraging because I think a lot of times, you know, even if it's not in the situation like you, we feel like we're down in the dumps and we can't get out sometimes. And stories like this will really resonate with a lot of people and encourage them. I want to go back a little bit. How old are you?
37.
Okay. Talking about your transformation, I always like to ask initially, tell me a little bit about you as far as childhood and teenage years. Were you an athletic kid? Were you not an athletic kid? Kind of where were you at that stage in your
my
life?
childhood was fairly normal. I liked riding bicycles a lot, so I did a lot of bicycle riding. My whole family was into mountain bike racing, so we did that. I got big into BMX racing. I won a couple of state races when I was in my early teens, and when I got into high school, I was on the wrestling team. So I was pretty athletic. I was always in shape. Normal childhood.
Okay. And where did life take you after high school?
I was very fortunate to get a good job at a young age. I'm in the computer field. I got an IT job. almost right out of high school. I was fortunate. I ended up buying a house young. I bought a condo, I think, when I was 20 years old. So I was off on my own when I was young, which is probably, a double-edged sword. Having all that freedom so young probably led me down the road that I went.
Okay. And what road was that? Tell us a little bit more where you were at as you're getting into your 20s. What were you doing, and where did that
Well,
lead
being
you?
the young one with the house, everybody naturally came to my house to drink and party and hang out. And
Okay.
I ended up getting involved with motorcycles, and I started stunt riding, and that was fun. We did it all over the place. Daytona Beach.
Okay.
We took trips everywhere and did stunt shows. It was a lot of fun, but along with that also came partying and drugs.
Okay. So were you doing this professionally, like as a job, or was it just like a side thing that you were doing?
I wouldn't say it was
it?
professional. We did get paid, but there's no way you could make a living off of it. Well, not me. There are people that do, but I wasn't one of them.
Okay. And so that started when you were about, 20 or 21, you said that you were doing
So I
this?
had my normal full-time job,
Okay.
and I did that. I rode almost every single day after work, and I would take vacations to do these shows down in Florida or New Hampshire, wherever they were.
Okay. And what kind of side attractions and temptations went along with that lifestyle?
Mostly drinking, but yeah, alcohol was probably the worst thing for me. I drank every day, all the time. And it started with, I guess, Percocets. They were everywhere. And I started taking them because I had hangovers, and they would make the hangovers go away. And at this point, I had no idea that you could get addicted to them. And they were just around. I took them all the time. And then one night I ran out, and I had no clue about withdrawals. I didn't know what it was. And I woke up sick, shivering, throwing up, had no clue why. And that was my first experience with withdrawals. It was awful.
Okay. And I mean, I got to ask, kind of just out of curiosity, because in the real world where I do my Clark Kent job, I'm a prosecutor. and the question comes to me naturally, you're driving around on a motorcycle doing stunts, and you're drinking and doing Percocets.
Well, not at the same time.
Nothing ever happened. I mean, was this as risky as it sounds to me? And I'm not condemning you. I'm naturally curious because of who I am.
I didn't drink and then ride. This was all we would ride, do our shows, and then afterwards we would party.
Okay.
I did drink and ride once, and I got into an accident, so never again.
Oh wow. Okay. So you said drinking and Percocets. What was next down the path for you?
You name it, and it was around. But people were doing coke and mushrooms and everything. Whatever. Everybody did all kinds of drugs around me, and I tried them all too.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Let me ask you, I mean, when you're in the midst of this, I mean, I see a ton of your family on here, incredibly supportive. What kind of a relationship did you have with your family at this point?
I've always been, close with my family, but I think when I was going through this, I think it was hard for it was hard for everybody to watch. I think my dad didn't really want to see me because he didn't want to see me like that. My mom was supportive. People were supportive, but I would get sober and then I would relapse so many times that I think people started to give up. And I felt the same way.
Okay.
I didn't know that it would ever get better. It was tough.
Yeah. When you were trying to stay sober, was there a motivation to it? And I know we talk a lot about motivation with exercise. Was there a motivation for you to try and stay sober? Or, I mean, what was it for you that was causing the struggle of staying sober?
Well, I think the main reason I kept relapsing is because, and I think this is the case for a lot of people, is you're trying to do it for the wrong reason. you're trying to do it to please somebody else or to get out of trouble or to save your job. And until you actually want to do it for yourself, it's pretty hard to stay motivated and to actually follow through. So, I got sober for work. I got in trouble at work with alcohol, and I stayed sober for a couple of months. And it's really hard to do it when you're doing it for other people.
Yeah. What was the hardest part when you're trying to do it for others? Is the hardest part just still kind of surrounding yourself with the triggers, or just still having a desire, or what was the hardest part?
That was a huge thing. Is when I first, so I think around 22 or 23 was my first detox, and I had been doing Oxycontin at the time and a lot of it. When they tell you, remove yourself from those types of people, don't be around them, change the people, places, and things in your life that are involved in that. And I didn't do that. I kept the same friends. I didn't move. Nothing changed. And sure enough, I ended up relapsing. And until I got rid of all those people, I deleted all the numbers out of my phone. I just stopped hanging out with those people, stopped contacting them. And until you're willing to do that, it's really hard. You got to separate yourself from it.
And how long of a time frame where you said you started doing this stuff around 20 or so?
Yeah.
Is that correct? Okay. How long of a time frame are we talking that you are having basically what we would call unsuccessful bouts of sobriety? I mean, just the constant relapses. I mean, what period of time did those occur over before you finally figured things out?
It was a solid 10 years of on and off. And for a long time I was in denial that I was an alcoholic. So I put the drugs down, but I continued to drink for years. And over the years it just progressively got worse and worse, to the point where I was drinking basically around the clock.
Mm-hmm. And were you continuing to do cycling stuff, or were you done with that, or how did that all play out time-wise?
So around the time I went to detox the first time, around 23-ish, I was still kind of riding here and there, but I ended up selling my bike for drugs. And I had always wanted to get back into it. I got a bike here and there, but I never really dove back in. When I do things, I have an addictive personality, like even from the BMX racing and wrestling, anything that I do, I 100% go into. And it was the same thing with drinking and drugging. I mean, my life revolved around it. I went to work, I got paid, and all my money went to drugs and alcohol. It was ridiculous. But I couldn't stop.
Yeah. Right. So, better part of 10 years. Tell me a little bit, as we talk about that time, which basically I'll just categorize as your 20s, tell me a little bit about you physically. I mean, you talked about you were wrestling, you talked about you were cycling, you're mountain biking. I mean, all of those things require you to be in pretty good shape. What kind of happened to you physically as you're into this thick of drugs and alcohol?
Physically, I didn't do anything. I didn't exercise. I didn't ride. I didn't do anything really. I don't know. I just went about my life, and I drank every day after work, so I wasn't thinking about going to the gym.
Right.
I am into RC stuff a little bit, so I did that, but that takes no physical skill at all.
Right.
Yeah. And so for those 10 years, I basically didn't work out or do anything, and that's what finally led me to get back into shape. I'm skipping over a few things, but when I was younger, around 23, I had my daughter, Lily, back then, and that was one of the reasons that I tried to get sober, was to, be involved in my child's life. And I stopped the drugs, and they drug tested me, and I passed, so I was able to keep seeing my daughter, but I was kind of lying about my drinking.
It appears we have a frozen camera. I'm going to hold on here and see how we can deal with this. There we go.
All right. Sorry about that.
Nope,
My
that's
phone was in the
okay.
sun.
That's okay. That happens in summer. I was just saying it happened to me yesterday. I was out in mine and it all fritzed up. Okay, so let me think. I'm trying to think where we were at exactly with your story. You were talking about, I think, with your daughter at 23. So
yeah, I tried to get sober to be in her life basically, and I did. You know, I got off drugs, but I kept drinking, and
right.
I was trying to convince myself that I didn't have a problem, but I did.
Uh-huh. Okay. And what was finally the thing that made you realize that you had a problem?
When I started waking up in the morning and I couldn't function without alcohol. I couldn't eat or drink anything. I was nauseous for most of the day. Oftentimes I would pull over on the way to work and get sick. It was just, I was sick all the time. And, you know, if I didn't have a drink, I was shaking and it was just awful.
Yeah.
And I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. I know that's a common saying, but every day of my life I was sick.
Yeah. Yeah. So just going cold turkey on something like that is not easy. What did you do?
Well, I went to a few detoxes over the years.
Right.
But the last one, I was drinking so much that when I went to the detox, even with the medication they gave me, I still had seizures. I ended up in the hospital. And during one of my last relapses, I picked up heroin again. And detoxing from that was the worst thing I've ever felt in my life.
Yeah.
And I will always remember how I felt. I would have rather been dead. And I try to remember that if I ever think bad things or think about drinking or using again. I just remember that day that I wanted to die.
Yeah. And how long ago was that?
A little over 2 years ago. May 16th is my sober date.
That's
So,
you know, and again, like I said, that's my Clark Kent job. Is I'm a prosecutor and I actually work with our treatment court here, and I know that if you know your sober date, that you're dead serious about keeping it. So that
yes.
says a lot that you know the date. So when you're going through all this, and you said obviously you never were working out, you were eating bad, and all of that. What was now? And how tall are you? Let me ask you this question.
5'5", short.
Okay. And when you get to the point that you realize that you're detoxing and stuff like that, and you talked about realizing that you needed to get back and get some exercise, how big of a guy were you at 5'5"?
It's almost 200 pounds, like 195-ish.
Wow.
Not good. So a little piece that I missed. Over the years, I met my current wife about 8 or 9 years ago, and we have 3 children, 2, 4, and 6. And she, you know, this was another reason that I needed to try again and get my life together. So, yeah, I mean, that's what got me into detox. But this time when I came out, I wanted to do something. I needed to do something different, because if I kept doing the same thing, then I'm pretty sure the same result would happen.
And you know what? It's funny you say that, because there's a great quote that talks about that. And I think the quote has to do with the definition of stupidity is doing
insanity.
Insanity, not stupidity, insanity. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. So that's a great reminder. What did you do different this time?
Well, so I mean, this was right after one of my birthdays, and I looked at myself in the mirror. It's summertime, and I was embarrassed to take my shirt off and go in the pool with my kids.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to do something about it, and my father had been going to CrossFit. So I got into the gym and I started going to CrossFit, and they drill it into you when you're in detox that exercise makes you feel better mentally and physically.
Correct.
And that is 100% true.
Yeah.
So I started exercising. I started feeling much better. I lost 20 or 30 pounds. I felt great. And I've been going to the gym almost every day since. I feel fantastic.
And you said you're 5'5". What was your highest weight?
It was right around there. Was the heaviest I had ever been, 195.
195. Okay.
Over 30% body fat. I think I was. Yeah, it was not good.
Yeah.
And I had high blood pressure. I was starting to have health problems from it. So I decided to do something about it.
Okay. Did you stick with CrossFit, or what did you do?
I stuck with CrossFit for 2 or 3 months, and that helped a ton. It got me in good shape. But I ended up hurting my back there a little bit, so I went off and did my own thing. And I've just been doing my own thing ever since. But I
as far as your
my diet, that was huge.
What changes did you make?
Basically, just I try and eat as clean as possible. I don't stick to any cookie cutter diet per se, but I eat healthy, fruits, vegetables, lean meat. I try and stay away from processed foods, bread, pasta, just simple carbohydrates. Stay away from that type of stuff. I just try and eat healthy.
Okay. What's your exercise or workout routine like these days?
Now I'm doing more of a bodybuilder type of workouts. I lost a bunch of weight. I got, like 20, 25 pounds, and I felt good, but I wanted to put back on a little bit of weight, gain some size. So that's what I've been focusing on for the past 18 months, is putting on some size.
Okay. Where are you at now?
About 180.
Okay.
But my body fat is like 25% lower.
Yeah. And that's real important. And and we talked about this yesterday, because this is a conversation that I have with a lot of people, is getting really focused on the number on the scale. Has that been a struggle for you? Because technically you're only 15 pounds lighter than you were at your heaviest.
Right. So in the beginning, I was focused on it because the weight was dropping off.
Right.
But after a while, the weight stopped moving. And I was focused on it for a while, but what I did do was I took pictures along the way. And even though the number on the scale stayed the same, you could see the difference in the pictures. So that's when I realized that, the number on the scale is just that, a number on the scale, and the difference is in the mirror.
Right. Right. So you're at 185. What does the future hold for Tony Martel in the next couple of years?
I just started getting back into mountain bike riding, so I don't think I want to really get any heavier. Any heavier, I'll be slower in the woods. But I'm happy with where I'm at now. I feel good.
Yeah. Let me ask you a couple questions to wrap things up, and I appreciate the time that you've given. Let me ask you a couple of questions, though. Out of all of what you've gone through, what was the biggest struggle for you?
Probably admitting that I was actually an alcoholic. I had a really hard time with that because I kept thinking, how am I going to go to social events, family parties, holidays? How am I going to do that and not drink? I kept thinking that I was never going to have fun again because I couldn't drink. But in time, your mind changes, and now I don't need it to have fun. I have fun without it. I don't need it.
Yeah.
Actually have more fun without it.
Have you ever found that, and I've always been curious, that guys who have gone sober, have you ever found that being in a situation where everybody else is drinking and you're not, does it give you an opportunity to tell your story?
I try. If people ask, I don't mind telling them, but I know a lot of people don't want to hear it. So I'm open if somebody wants to ask about it, but I don't go out of my way to tell people.
Yeah, I just think it's a great opportunity. It's a great thing to share, because what you've gone through, in my opinion, requires so much determination And there are people who struggle with just losing a little bit of weight, not even the alcoholism or the drug addiction or anything like that. I mean, stories like yours, and that's why we're doing this, but I mean, stories like yours just really, can inspire people. And it's one of those things where, somebody asks you, well, why aren't you having a drink? Well, I'm an alcoholic, and I really struggled with it for a long time, but I'm here, and I'm sober since May 16th of 2016, whatever. It seems like sometimes it would be a great opportunity, and you never know when you have those opportunities who you are kind of connecting with and reaching out and encouraging them to see that they can improve wherever they're at too. So that was why I asked. Let me ask you last question, and this is something we do for everybody. We talk about this as defining dad bod. We hear negative connotations of what the dad bod scenario is. Tell me, in your perspective, what does it mean, the phrase defining dad bod?
You mean what is a dad bod or defining?
When the phrase defining dad bod, to you, what does that mean? And I'm guessing it probably doesn't mean what most people think it means. And I'm curious to get your take.
I would like to create. I want to create a new image for dad bod. I want to be a father that looks good and feels good. I don't want to be one of those. I don't want to have a beer gut. I want to be in shape. I want to have energy to play with my kids and do those things, and I do.
That's awesome. Hey, before we go, will you do me one favor? And if you've got this, is there any way, once it's posted on the page, if you in the comments would put a picture of you when you were heavy and a picture now? It's always good to see the before and after pictures. If you've got a couple, if you post those in the comments.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great. Hey, man, thank you so much. And like I said, you've come an awfully long way. You've come a longer way than a lot of people have to come and have fought against a lot more than most people have to fight against just for physical fitness. So kudos to you, man. It's a very impressive thing. I am completely honored to talk to somebody like you who has really turn yourself around, and as I'm watching this, I'm just watching the constant feed of people that you have got in your corner, and I think that says a lot for you, that you've got just person after person after person saying, this is an amazing story, you should be proud, and everything else, and you certainly should. So thank you for taking the time, and keep up the hard work. Keep us posted as things get better for you.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time.
Okay, no problem. Thank you, man.
Man, Tony, kudos to you for standing up for those little girls. And hashtag defining dad bod. You're the man. Next up is Mr. Aaron Kenyon, and we're going to wade through some technical difficulties to hear about his story of losing over 100 pounds in 6 months. He utilized tools like ketogenic diets and intermittent fasting in order to achieve his results, so I think you'll find it really interesting to listen in to his transformation.
Aaron, how are you, man?
I'm doing great, man. How are you doing?
I'm good. Okay, I have to tell you before we start your interview, and I know you're on a lunch break, so I won't take a lot of time, but I have to tell you this. I've been doing this for like 3 months. In the 3 months that I have done this, every Tuesday, we have never had it this flawless that I have got on. I have seen you on. I have brought you on. I had it last week. The guy came on. It was awesome. I just was getting started to ask him to tell his story, and he lost internet at his house. So
man.
It was a huge disaster. So either this is going to be an amazing, epic episode simply for the technology, or it's going to be, or we're going to have a really good technology and a good interview. So I'm really excited about that. Man, it's good to talk to you, and I'm glad to chat with you. Where are you located, Aaron?
Oh man. All right.
Okay, where are you located?
I live in Independence, Missouri.
Okay. Oh, you're kind of down the road for me. I'm up here in St. Louis, so it's good to find somebody local. Do you ever get up to St. Louis?
We drive through there. We have family in Centralia, Illinois.
Okay.
And,
okay. Well, if you ever stop, let me know, and we'll catch up in person. But we're not here to talk about travel plans, even though it's 4th of July. I'm here to hear your story. And I've had just a brief chance to chat with you. So I want to jump right in and talk with you. Tell me a little bit about you as far as when you were a kid, when you were younger. Were you an athletic kid? Were you a heavy kid? What kind of give us a little bit of your background as a kid and a teenager?
All right. Growing up, I was the heavy kid. When I was real little, I was skinnier, but through elementary school and stuff, I was the chubby kid. I remember, getting the tubby 2x4 jokes and stuff and things like that. And when I got into high school, I played sports, so I had trimmed down some.
Okay.
But I was generally
what sports did you play?
On the heavy side. I played basketball.
Sure. Okay. Okay. Definitely a hard sport to play if you're a little bit heavier guy.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, when I played that, it helped a little bit because I was a little more trim.
Sure.
But then as I got older, out of high school and stuff, it just seemed to get worse. I've always been into fitness. Like, I love the aspect of it. I loved bodybuilding. I thought it was really awesome, but I never like committed to it. I'd always like try to start something, then stop it, then start something, then stop it. And it's kind of like how my life has been with fitness. It's a roller coaster game.
Sure, and that is incredibly common for people. I've talked to a lot of guys who have been through that, where they've been athletic as kids and have gotten heavier, and they get frustrated and they drop it. And let me ask you this: since you've had that issue, and obviously now you've gotten to a point that fitness is a priority, what makes it stick? Because you've had situations where it didn't stick. What to you makes fitness stick?
Man, there's a culmination of things, I think. Having people to do it with, one of the key things with this time is me and my wife were both at a point where we were like, we got to do something, and then having some friends that are in trying to lose weight too and do the same thing. So a culmination of other people, and then finding what works for you is like a major thing, because there's so many different ways to eat or try to do things, and you got to find what works for you. And that's like the major key, I think.
Yeah. So for you, with bouncing around early on in your fitness journey, what didn't work? Tell me what you tried that didn't work.
I think sometimes we're doing the tons of pre-prepping and tons of planning like that can be hard, especially when you have a family and you have a bunch going on. You're trying to run all the time. Being able to figure out how to do those things on the go, where you don't have pre-prep meals. I can't take a pre-prep meal with me to my kids' dance studio and all those things. Okay.
Oh, I lost you. Aaron, I'm going to look for you again, but I've lost you. Awesome. You moved.
What's going
Perfect.
on? My phone overheated.
You know what?
It said
what? And you're the second person that's happened to. So I need to remember when I talk to people ahead of time to warn them about that and make sure. I've been having that problem too myself. So that's a good thing for me to know. I appreciate you telling me that. Okay, back to you. Okay, you started to say what worked for you this time that didn't work in the past. So tell me what worked for you this time.
So, sorry, camera's all cloudy. So this time, me and my wife, we started the ketogenic diet, and she had a friend who had done it, and I've done a lot of research on it. There's a bunch of YouTubers that I'm subscribed to that I've watched a lot of their stuff. I'm a study nut when it comes to some of that stuff. I like to learn it and figure it out, and I've heard a lot of good results from doing that, and so her parents had some good luck with paleo, and they're kind of along the same lines. Keto's a little more restrictive when it comes to carbohydrates, but it's just something where we were both ready and we tried it. And I included intermittent fasting because to me, looking at the research and stuff like that with the ketogenic diet and intermittent fasting, they kind of go hand in hand. They're like brother, sister, and gives you a little more freedom when it comes to being able to eat in a little more that you can eat in a time period, you know, bigger meals. And I'll tell you what, within the first month, I dropped like 30 pounds in the first month alone. And that was no exercise. You know, my biggest focus at the beginning was I need to make sure that diet's 90% of it. So I was like, I got to make sure that I can stick with this. I mean, because that's, you know, if I can't stick with that, it's not gonna really matter. Yeah. And for me, like it was twofold. I feel like not having freedom and not having to try to do tons and tons of meal prep. And like I said, you know, it works for some people. You got to find what works for you. Being able to have that freedom to fit it into a couple meals in my 8-hour window, and then having the fat for my energy source. It seems like I didn't have hunger pains, you know, because of how it messes with your glucose levels and stuff like that. Like I didn't feel like I was starving all the time, and so it's worked. I don't know. You know, obviously there's a lot of science behind it if you look into it too.
So let me ask you a couple of questions. So when were you at your heaviest? How long ago?
In December, I was around 317
Like December of 2017. Okay.
Yes.
And December. So where are you at now?
I'm at 209.
So you've dropped 100 pounds in 6 months.
Yeah. Now the beginning of that, I was not doing the ketogenic diet.
Okay.
I did lose 20 pounds at the beginning of the year. Our church, we did a 21-day fast at the beginning of the year, praying, you know, for whatever God's will is for the church and stuff like that. And I gave up soda. That was one of my first things that I gave up. I mean, I was drinking a 2-liter plus a day, and I dropped 20 pounds in that first month. And like I said, that was kind of my wife wasn't drinking soda because we had just had a little one not too long before that, and so that was one of my addictions. So I decided to kick it, and then that's when we both got on the same page.
What was your soda vice? What was your favorite? Hello? Oh man.
Addicted to it. I was addicted to it.
Well, go ahead. You blocked out Wild Cherry Diet Pepsi. Okay.
Yeah, and I would drink a 2-liter of it in the evening, in a couple hours.
Yeah.
And that include, you know, I would have. What was that?
No, go ahead.
Oh, I would have a few energy drinks in the morning, then a 32-ounce glass of pop at lunch, and then get some pop on the way home, and then drink my 2-liter during the evening when I got home. So, needless to say, I was addicted.
Okay,
slightly.
First of all, you win my favorite interviewee because you say pop, not soda. I'm from Northern Illinois, and we call it pop. So you win right there. But no, I was the same way. When I was heavy, I went through Coke Zero like nobody's business, and I totally rationalized and justified it by the fact that it was a diet soft drink. And so I totally did 2-liter probably every 2 nights. I'm not quite as much as you, but I mean 2-liter every 2 nights easy. And I mean, I did that for years, and I gave it up cold turkey. Was that the hardest thing for you to give up, or was there something else food-wise that was hard for you to give up?
No, in all honesty, it was kind of hard at first, obviously, because of caffeine.
Right.
Because I kind of try to limit my caffeine for the first few weeks just so that I wouldn't have that, like, craving.
Right.
But I'd say that's probably the hardest thing. Because food-wise, like, I really, really thought, because I love potatoes, I love rice,
yes.
I thought that was going to be so hard for me. But when we want pasta, I do zucchini pasta, and I'll do cauliflower rice and cauliflower mashed potatoes. And shockingly enough, if you season them right and cook them right, man, they're great. And I don't feel like I'm missing out.
Yeah.
And secondly, the density in those, in comparison to like a regular mashed potatoes, I can have twice as much cauliflowers and still probably not hit the caloric amount that I would eating the potatoes. So you're able to fill up, and you don't feel like, I don't feel like I'm on a diet.
Right.
That's, I think, one of the key things to try to find what works for you. you don't want to feel like you're having to
Right.
restrict yourselves, even though I am
Right.
restricting
No,
myself.
you don't want
You
to.
know,
Right.
it's learning to find
Yeah,
those
you want to
things.
trick your mind that you're not. The trick mind not. Okay, so diet a huge portion for huge part of it for you. Talk to me though. I mean, you know, diets are made in the kitchen, bodies are made in the kitchen, but I mean, you must have done something as far as exercise because you talked about it before, trying to find, you know, what you enjoyed and trying to find a group. What exercise kicked in for you? What exercise worked for you? What do you enjoy?
So for me, you know, I've always loved weight training. I love calisthenics. I love a lot of those things, but I honestly just started doing like I'm doing like a mix of calisthenics and weight training and like almost CrossFit style thing at home. But I just started doing that a few weeks ago. To be completely honest. The thing that has stuck for me is walking. Like just getting out. Like literally this whole 6 months. The first month I didn't do anything, and then I started walking at work. And I'd walk on lunch break. So I'd get a little over a mile in on lunch break. Me and a few of the guys from work, you know, they got into it with me, and we'd walk a mile on lunch break. And then you know, we started doing family walks with my family. Like my kids are starting to get into it. They enjoy trying to exercise, and they enjoy our weekly walks. We try to go walking every Sunday as a family. So that was a big thing for me. And then as I've gotten in better shape, I try to get in at least 3 miles at work alone. Like we get a break every 2 hours. So every break I go for a mile walk primarily. And so I get in 3 miles of walking just at work. And then since I've started my workouts, I have to be at work at 6 a.m. and I try to keep the evenings free because of all of our kids' extracurricular stuff. So the workouts have been a little hit and miss because I try to get up at 4 in the morning to do those. But you know, you got to get it in where you can get it in. Like, you know, this past week when I got home, the kids wanted to go to the park, so I walked them to the park. You know, got loaded in the stroller. The ones that could walk, walked to the park to play, and then walk back home. And that, you know, you're getting an extra couple miles in, and you got to do what you can do to get those things in. And I'm learning, like, it doesn't have to be a specific routine necessarily. It's getting out and doing something. And I've given myself the freedom. Like I said, I just started a workout program, but man, that's just getting out and moving has just been the key for me.
Finding ways to employ it every single day to make it easy to keep going. That's so important. So you're down 100 pounds. What's next for you? What's the goal? What's the drive? Is there like something you're looking at doing more? You're into the CrossFit a little bit. Are you thinking maybe that? Or I mean, is there something that kind of caught your eye or caught your fancy? Some shiny thing?
Oh, you're getting staticky on me.
Am I?
Hold on. What was that you said?
I said, so now that you're down 100 pounds, what's next? You know, you talk about the CrossFit a little bit. Is that something you kind of the shiny thing, or you know, is there something you'd like to try a little bit, or?
So I'm just working out at home right now. But the program I'm doing, it's my brother-in-law sent it to me, and it's the Fit to Fat to Fit guy. He, you know, it's like calisthenics with a little bit of weight training and stuff. So it's like an 8-week program. My goal is to do it. Like, I've never been lean my whole life. I've never, you know, had a 6-pack. I've never seen my shoulder muscles or any of that stuff. So like, I'm going for the gusto, man. Like I really want to, you know, I'm 37 years old and I want to get lean.
Good for you. That's awesome. Let me, and I know you're on a tight schedule, so I want to wrap this up, but I got 2 questions for you, and we like to ask these questions to everybody. Over your journey, over your fitness journey, for, you know, all the way you've gone, what's been the biggest struggle?
What's been the biggest struggle with what I'm doing right now?
The biggest struggle. Yeah, I mean, just all the way through your journey, what's been the biggest? Yeah.
Sorry, man. I keep losing you.
No, that's okay. That's okay. I'll go one more time. Yeah. The question I had is, over your entire fitness journey that you've gone on over the last few years, what's been the biggest struggle for you?
I think my struggle overall throughout everything, you know, is I don't know. I think staying committed, like, was like the hardest thing. I'm a foodie. I love food. And so just, I think that's where doing the intermittent fasting and stuff that I've been doing, like I said, I feel like I get to eat bigger portions. I feel satiated. I feel full. Like the biggest struggle for me was always trying to find what worked, because I wanted to be in shape, but, making small little meals and stuff, like I'd always I'd do good for a while, but then at some point, like I feel like I wasn't filling myself up. Right. And it's always been, the biggest struggle has always been food. I mean, I think that's the key thing, because I don't mind getting out and moving once I get to that point. Yeah. I mean, obviously. Yeah. And the last getting to that point. Okay. And the last question I've got for you, and sorry about cutting you off there. The last question I've got for you is, we talk about the idea of defining the dad bod. What does that mean to you in throughout your struggle, as you look back, defining dad bod? What does that mean to you? Defining dad bod. This is the name of the podcast, Defining Dad Bod. What does that mean to you? I am really sorry, man. I don't know what the deal is. My
signal
is being cruddy. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, well, it's like choppy. Okay. So I'm trying to find a spot where...
Let me know when you got one.
Oh, my goodness. You jinxed
I
us.
know.
You jinxed us.
I know.
Hold on a sec.
Okay.
Let's see.
You there?
Maybe.
Yeah?
Okay. Try to talk now.
Real quick question, and then you can answer. Real quick. Defining Dad Bod.
There it is.
Okay, Defining Dad Bod. That's the name of the podcast. What does that mean to you?
Right. Oh, man. To me, defining dad bod would be, for each person, it could be a little different. But when I think of a dad bod, I think of, the typical dad bod is the chubby guy, they let themselves get out of shape and things like that. I think you make it what you want to make it. Like, to me, when I think of a dad bod,
Oh, you're cutting out. Okay. Aaron, we totally lost you. So here's what I'm going to ask of you. And I'm going to ask you two things. First, I'm going to ask you.
First of all, I'm going to ask Aaron to type in a comment what he means by defining dad bod, because he started something good there. So we're going to finish that. And Aaron, the second thing I'm going to ask is if you would put a couple of pictures in when you were at your heaviest. So, another exciting episode. It's obviously always the exciting part is the technology. So I appreciate everybody sticking with it and standing by. Aaron, I will definitely post these questions for you. But thank you guys, and keep tuning in. One of these days, it's going to be an amazing episode. We're going to have this incredible signal. We're going to get all the way through it. It's going to be amazing. So Aaron, thank you very much for your time. And everybody else, keep tuned to hear the last. Hopefully Aaron will get that last question posted. Again, John Bauer, thank you very much for Defining Dad Bod and for Bauer Power Fitness. Take care.
Man, I wish we could have heard his definition of defining dad bod. You can actually check that out at the Bauer Power Fitness Consulting page, where he recorded that live and Aaron commented on that video. Next up is Mr. Jason Jones. And Jason went from being a competitive power lifter at 260 pounds to realizing that his own cardiovascular health was more important than his ego. Let's listen into this story.
So let's go ahead and get started. Where are you located, Jason?
I am in, let me get a better view here. We are in Pickerington, just outside of Columbus, Ohio.
Okay, great. And I always like to start a little bit chronological with the story. So if you would kind of take us back as far as when you were a kid, young adult, kind of where you were fitness-wise.
When I was a kid, I always played sports, the typical baseball, basketball, soccer, and ironically, my kids wouldn't know, but I actually wasn't very good at sports when I was young. I was taller than most of the kids, but I wasn't very coordinated. And it wasn't until around 7th, 8th grade that I finally started growing into my body, let's say. And it's funny, I was 6', 6'1" in 8th grade, and I have uncles that are tall, and I thought I was gonna be very tall, and then I stopped, and everyone kept growing. So it was fun. Yes. So yeah, so I was in sports. I said, and that actually was good for me. Being a coach that I've coached in the last 20 years is, I try to tell the kids, like, when you're young, don't worry about how good another player is. Worry about your own development, because it's amazing how athletes, especially young athletes, change and develop, and some get better, some stagnate. It just goes back and forth. So anyway, so young athlete, played high school sports, was going to play college sports, typical, blew out my knee. And then as I was telling earlier, is that it wasn't as much physical for me. A lot of players, they say after they hurt an injury or take an injury, they scare. I was mentally scared every time because of the long rehabilitation process. All of that is mentally, it threw me off my game and never let me really, it's been years for me to really be comfortable on my knee again, and the various other injuries that come along with sports.
How did that kind of manifest itself? I mean, I kind of can understand it, but I mean, explain for everybody a little bit more. I mean, how old were you when you injured your knee?
The first time I was 16, and I was just coming off of playing at some local Nike leagues here. I was doing really well. Had a very good high school sophomore career or sophomore season, and so mentally it devastated. And had I known then what I know now, I could have mentally prepared myself and really worked on that. But it took quite a few years, because I think as a young, well, I'd say most people were very we don't like to wait. We're very impatient. And so for me to sit there and go, okay, it's only a year. I can take a year off. I can rehabilitate, be stronger next year. It's the immediate, like, well, I can't play for 6 months, 9 months. And
well, that's a long time when you're That's a long time when you're 16. I mean, a year is a lifetime when you're 16. I mean, you and I now we look back and it's like it's no big deal. But yeah.
And that's what I try to, especially my sons. I teach my sons, like, take the time to develop every little bit of, just like in school, you learn how to write your letters, then you learn how to write words, then sentences, then paragraphs, and so on. Same thing, take your time to develop. And I just wish that I would have learned back then that, God willing, I have a lot of time ahead of me. I can take my time. I can really, develop those things. And it's just interesting that everyone says it. I wish I knew then what I knew now. But it is true.
And it's always an interesting question. I heard this question asked to somebody the other day. It's like, and how old are you?
I'll be 40 in 2.5 months. So
yeah,
39.
So
now.
It's always an interesting question. Like, if you as a 40-year-old could go back and tell your 16-year-old self something, what would you say? And that's a great question to think about. And I mean, you've just answered it.
Yeah.
But
my number one thing would have been, and it's funny because I have a 13-year-old, he'll be 14 this year, and I keep telling him is, I love athletics, I love sports, but most likely you're not going to make it in sports.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't want to kill his dream. I don't want to kill any kid's dream.
It's a thin line.
It's student athlete for a reason. Use the student part, study, and then also on the sports end, you can never work hard enough. And we've learned that as we've gotten older. I mean, when you push yourself and you think you're, quote unquote dying, and then 5 minutes after your workout, you're like, yeah, I'm fine. Like, but to tell those kids, like, day in, day out, especially as a kid, your body recuperates in no time. Yeah. Push yourself harder than you ever could have pushed yourself. You're not going to die. You're going to be fine. Right. But so after that, I went went to college. And in there I found boxing. I was an athlete. I still, wanted something to do. So I got into boxing. I was boxing light heavy, which is 178. Great time. Loved it. Loved the training, a lot of training. And in the meantime, I had some personal things happen, and a buddy of mine was a power lifter. And he said, hey, come to the gym with me. Let's do some powerlifting. And the freedom to be able to eat whatever you want, to never do cardio except for like if you just want to catch, get a spray of sweat. For me, especially, coming from 2 years of running 4 miles like 4 or 5 times a week and training all this time, I was like, this is awesome. So in a year, I went from 180 to 260. And again, the unhealthiest way you could imagine. Large pizzas for dinner, 4 and 5 junior bacon cheeseburgers for lunch. Like,
oh man!
Well, when you're a smaller guy, I know a lot of smaller guys, you have to eat, and you have to eat. And again, now I would have done it over like a course of 4 or 5 years, but again, instant gratification, and I was getting good at it. I was actually really strong. Surprisingly for my size, and when I used to compete at 220 and under, so I always had to cut weight. And natural, I was my highest I was benching mid 4s, and going into a supplement thing that we talk about is the last bench press meet I went to. There was 4 people in my weight class, and it was an open meet. And I don't know if you're familiar, open versus drug free versus open means there's no drug testing. It's whatever you want to do. 3 of us all opened up with 365 pounds on the bench. The 4th one opened up with 495.
Wow.
And so we're all kind of doing the Sesame Street, like one of these things is not like the other. Well, ironically, he hits the bar on his first lift, drops the weight, and everyone's like, oh, God, maybe he just doing too heavy. His second lift, he opens up with 550 and hits it no problem. And we're all just sitting there like, okay, yeah, this is the difference between food versus synthetic steroids.
Yeah, no doubt.
But it was an eye-opener, and yes, tempted very often in powerlifting especially. I mean, all sports have drugs, but powerlifting is one where, it's tempting. You see these guys in bodybuilding, powerlifting, and it's hard, but none of them are really natural. I mean, that's the sad part is, there are a few that claim, but not a lot that are. But
yeah.
So then powerlifting became about an 8-10 year process. Well, then try to go back from 260 back to 180. That's not really it doesn't take a year. It takes some of the people, yes, but for me it's been about a 10-year process to wean myself. I'll lose 30, 40, I'll gain 20 or 30, I'll lose. And so I've been doing that seesaw battle for the last 10 years. And then about a year and a half ago, I finally had my come to Jesus, just this is it, moment. And before it became a health problem. That was my goal. Again, my family, heart disease is huge. And so I just really wanted my boys to see a positive role model as far as losing weight and being healthy and still living life. I still have pizza Fridays, I still, we went out and got Chinese the other night. I still eat some foods, but, so anyway, questions? You have
and you said, what was the highest you got?
260. So I was at 260. And like I said, my natural body weight's 180. And so it was a change, a definite transition. And then to kind of go into that is I talk about his ego. So as a guy, as a man, especially when you're a man that's 175, 180 your whole life, you get treated different. It's kind of like if a woman, being a bikini model versus someone who's not. You're different. When I would go to places at 260, hey, big guy, man, man, your arms are huge. How much are you benching? I'd go to the local gym or if I was on vacation or whatever, and I'd sit down and put 315 on a bench and rep it 10, 15 times, and people would look at you like, oh, my Lord. And
that's okay.
And to go from that to back to, not being that is really hard on an ego. And so that's part of for me was a lot of the seesawing the last 10 years has been, I would get down to 215. My shirts would start fitting baggier. I, wasn't getting that recognition, and guys were like, hey man, you're looking huge. You're looking swole, or, whatever thing you want to say now. And so that's part of it too. And guys need to understand that, that's just your ego. That is 100% your ego. It is nothing else.
Yeah. What did you do then to drop? I mean, you got up there and you said you were just eating like crazy. I mean, what did you do to drop back down?
So, going back to supplements, I tried the fat burners. I tried, I've tried. If it was a GNC at one point, I literally have purchased it. I mean, I never did anything illegal. But did everything back in the day. Like, for example, when they used to have, what was it called? Ripped Fuel. It used to be Ripped Fuel. It had ephedrine in it.
Yeah.
And it was the most amazing thing ever. But it's not healthy. It didn't, it worked for a while, but your habits come back. It's got to be, we talk about what in your mind is if, I don't care what you use, if your mind isn't there, it's going to go away. You're going to start eating again. You're going to start, because obviously whatever got you to 260, even me being powerlifting, after a while, I stayed there. So there was something keeping me there. It was emotional. What is it that you need to figure out? So those are the things that kind of that weigh on you. But the biggest thing for me is, and it still is for me, is portion control. 100%, 100%. Because I have friends that used to buy the Nutrisystem, and I'm not knocking again. Everything works if you want to use it.
Right.
All it is portion control. I mean, you're still eating the same foods. It's just portion control. Because I'll take a healthy meal and eat 3 times the amount that a normal person should, and now it's not healthy. So I still do that every once in a while. So I have to watch. My wife would be. I think she's even on the line. Is that she would tell you that there's times where that inner power lifter fat boy comes out and I eat, and it'll be healthy. Like I said, it'd be chicken and rice, and I've literally consumed 2 or 3 chicken breasts at this point and a cup or 2 of cooked rice, and no reason unless I'm training or you're doing something to eat that much food. And
so what, I mean, how do you motivate yourself, or how do you motivate the bad word? I guess, how do you create the discipline to keep yourself healthy now? Because I mean, you've gone up and down, and I've experienced that too. I'm someone who's gone up and down over my journey. How do you mentally keep yourself from doing that and not just kind of like freaking out every time you step on the scale and it's a little bit too much?
So this happened this weekend. So I've been on a cut. Our boys are out of town, and it's just the wife and I, and so I've been able to work out more and do a little more things. And this weekend we ate pretty well, and I gained almost 4 pounds from Friday to Monday. Now, people don't realize you really didn't gain 4 pounds. It's just you have water weight, you have all these things. I've learned that it's not going to happen overnight. It's a marathon, 100%. And I'm not a runner, but it's a marathon. So I just have to start back over on Monday. I started back. I ate a small lunch yesterday. We had sushi for dinner, but I had normal size portion, bowl of cereal for breakfast this morning, and like a half a cup of cottage cheese, something just little. And I normally don't eat breakfast, but I want to eat. I want to go to bed earlier tonight, so I'm trying to go to bed, trying to get to sleep, which sleep is important.
Yeah.
So mentally, again, you have to kind of, I'm a firm believer, and again, got this from my wife more than anything, is you have to have a goal, and you have to write it down. You have to visualize it. You got to see it. When you listen to like Arnold and those guys, when they talked about back in the day, is that they would plaster their picture of what they wanted to be all over the walls of their idols. You don't have to necessarily do that, but you have to have a goal in mind, and you've got to keep mentally be able to see it. If you can't see it and you can't visualize it, it's not going to happen. It's just like a free throw. It's just like a putt in golf. You have to be able to close your eyes and see it, and understand that it's okay to have a cheeseburger.
Yeah. It's
not okay to have 5 a week. And that's what people, I think, lose it, is that they think, oh, well, I had a bad week, and now a bad week turns into a bad month, and turns into about 6 months. And I've been there. Yeah. It's happened. I've had those lapses. And so I just think that people need to relax, regroup. It's just like a business. You're going to have a bad year once in a while. It's going to happen. I mean, that's just the roller coaster.
Right. It's really funny you say that about visualization, because I was talking with a friend of mine last night. We were talking, and he's reading a book, and one of the things that he read, and I actually just wrote this quote down today, so it's kind of coincidental time. Belief always precedes behavior. And I think that goes a lot to what you were saying is the visualization. Is if you visualize it and believe that you can accomplish something, that's the only way you're going to initiate the behavior to get to that goal. So I think that's a really good, another real good way of thinking about what you're talking about, that visualization.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, they say, is ask the universe and you shall receive kind of thing, is if you keep telling yourself that you're fat every day, you're going to see fat and you're going to be fat. I mean, you have to be realistic, but in the same breath, you have to constantly remind yourself. And it's a battle. I mean, there's some people, and this is what skinny doesn't equal healthy.
Right.
And I try to explain that a lot. And I'm not a personal trainer. But people think, oh, they're skinny, they're healthy. No, I know a lot of skinny people that are horribly unhealthy.
Yeah.
is not starving yourself. It's not it, but it's you have to exercise. You have to get your heart rate up. You have to watch your food. It is work. And that's why I think the biggest thing that people are obese and people will give up is it is work. It's constant work. But again, you have to live life. You have to enjoy that meal. And I love food. My hobby is smoking meat. I love to go out and smoke meat for hours and hours and hours. And I love to feed people. And I think that goes back to, eating, and it all comes full circle. Yeah. But you have to just control yourself. But it is a constant battle. But I do believe, that it starts in your head. It definitely starts in your mind.
Exactly. 2 questions left to ask you. Same questions I always ask everybody at the end of every interview. First question, with your transformation, your fitness journey, biggest struggle was what?
Biggest struggle, honestly, was not admitting it, because, I knew that I was getting out of shape. I knew that I was overweight. I knew that I wasn't, and quote unquote, like being sexy for my partner, my wife, like I knew I wasn't. And so for me, it was saying especially someone who was skinny and I had a 6-pack when I was younger and I was ripped and is saying, you've really let yourself get to this point and not beat yourself up about it and not, tell myself like, it's okay. Like it sucks, but this is where we're at. This is life. And so for me, I think it was getting over the fact that, first of all, I'm not 20 years old and it didn't take 2 weeks to lose weight again like it did when you're 20. So I think for me, the biggest hurdle was just really accepting it, because the greatest thing I see right now for me is when I watch my boys, especially my 7-year-old and my 13-year-old, but 7-year-old especially, I'll turn around and he's downstairs in the gym by himself. Right. It's safe. No children's services. Yeah. But there's a heavy bag down there and he'll hit the bag and he'll lift weights and he'll do this, he'll do that, and watching them emulate what I'm doing. And then it's funny because my 13-year-old, who's got my sarcastic sense of humor, is constantly, was that part of your diet, Dad? Oh, a Mountain Dew. Like, you're going to drink a soda? And I'm like, stop it. But he's right. He's 100% right. And he's noticing that. And both of my kids are in great shape, but it's just the fact that they're being cognizant, they're being aware that junk in equals junk out, and I tell them all the time, like, you're going to get out what you put in. And if you put in, crappy gas in your car, it's going to run crappy. And so they understand that. So that's been a really positive, I guess, if you want to, the most positive or the most rewarding thing of my whole experience has been watching my children learn from what I'm doing. And hopefully it's setting that example and it sticks, because, for me, the greatest gift in life so far has been being dad. So that's it's cheesy, but it's true. Like it is.
Nope, not cheesy true. At all. Not cheesy at all.
It's 100% true.
And I can relate to that a lot. I have 3 kids, and my oldest in particular, my oldest daughter, often we joke and we talk, and she's trying to eat healthier, and she's frequently told me it's because of what she sees. So, I don't think that's cheesy at all. I think it's a great thing. Obviously we talk about being a dad, and that is the most important thing that any of us do. Which leads me easily to my last question. The whole phrase is defining dad bod. That's the name of the podcast. That's the phrase
Yep.
we kind of toss around and joke around. What does it mean to you?
It's funny because the ego part of me still wants to say I want to have a six pack and big, 24-inch arms and, all that. A dad bod to me is my kids seeing and my wife seeing that I care about myself enough to do whatever it takes to be as healthy as I can and stay here as long as I can with them.
That's great.
Is, at the end of all of this, obviously we're not going to make it out alive. We get that. But if I can extend my life, another day with my family, it truly means a lot. And maybe being healthy and doing all that isn't the answer, but at least at the end of the road, I want to say that I tried. I did everything I could to be here as much as I could, as healthy as I can. Because that's, for me, I think, being a very active dad, I think that would be hard for me to not be able to be active with my kids. And as I was telling you, we were talking the other day, is, my 7-year-old, he's going to expect me to play the same way that my 14 and 17-year-old are now. And he's not going to care that. I don't care, Dad, if you're 50 instead of 40. That's not my fault. That's your fault. So I still need to be able to physically, I still, and again, that goes back to your ego, because, our 17-year-old brought over her boyfriend for the first time, and first time having a boy at the house. Great experience as a dad. And that's why I still do like being big at some point, because all the friends are like, all the friends say like, your dad's scary. I'm like, that's good. I like that. But
I deadlift for a reason, and it's because I have a 16 and a 13-year-old daughter. That's one of the reasons I deadlift.
Yes. Well, our 17-year-old, her boyfriend came over, and he's 6'4", and I'm like 6'1". Again, so I'm looking up, but he's skinny. So, and we're playing basketball, and he's going to go to college to play basketball. And I'm like, my ego still came in. I'm like, I got to be able to beat this kid. And I'm like, I'm not going to lie. The difference was 3 days later, I was still sore, and I'm sure he was fine. Like, I mean, that was the fun part. But yeah, defining dad bod 100% for me is showing my family that they mean enough for me to go out and get up at 4:30 and work out.
Yeah.
To put that second cheeseburger down, to not excessively drink alcohol, to do those things to where it shows them that dad is here, at least trying, at least fighting. You know what I mean? At least giving an effort. So that for me is really the definition of a dad bod.
Yeah, that's awesome. Hey, thank you very much for your time. Quick question, or quick favor to ask you after we post this. If you would not mind, in the comments to this, if you would not mind posting a couple pics, post a picture when you were at your heaviest, and post a picture for us now.
I sure will. I appreciate it, John.
Hey, no problem. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Jason, thanks for the reminder for us to check our egos at the door and to realize what's really important in life. Last but not least, to tie up the transformation stories for the summer 2018 on Defining Dad Bod is Mr. Reggie Shah. Reggie had a plethora of health issues stemming from his health and fitness, and he decided to do something about it. Reggie found a passion for competing in events and became the guy who had pictures of him finishing at the finish line that other people could find inspiring. Let's listen to Reggie's transformation story.
There you are.
All right, so that was my fault. I was already here with the computer.
Oh, yeah. It's funny, seriously. And I mean, anybody who's watched me do these knows that every single week we have these great, I get all excited that technology is going to work, and it never, ever works perfectly. But that doesn't matter. You're on, and I'm hoping you got. Andy Storch is watching you too.
So let me give you a disclaimer before we even get started. Here in New York, we're bracing for some crazy humidity related storms, and the sky is turning black. So if I suddenly disappear
into the
probably land in Kansas.
Okay, in the alternative dimension with an infinity stone or something like that. Okay. So anyways, I was telling people that you and I know each other. You and I are part of another online dad group. It's the Dad Edge Alliance, and I have been involved in it for just about, it was actually a year last week. When did you get involved in it?
Almost 2 years ago.
Okay. And so
2 years ago, we started in Larry's masterminds.
Okay.
before there was even an alliance.
Okay.
And that was, I don't know if you want to explain what a mastermind is, but that's how this whole thing started.
Okay, yeah, and that's kind of the way we got to know each other, and we've known each other, and I think I can be safe to say that in the group, and there's about 250 guys in there now, in the group, we probably both are relatively well known for, how would you define it? Kind of our happy demeanor?
Being insane.
Being insane. I was trying to be nice to us, but you're not. But anyway, so, and the reason I do bring that up for a reason. I obviously I wanted to, I feel like I need to run a disclaimer on the bottom that we know each other. But on top of that, I want to bring it up because obviously as we're going to go into your story, there's some significance to the fact that you and I are in this group as to your story. But obviously we want to talk, and in the year I have known you, I have seen some of your physical transformation. So if you don't mind, go back to when you were a younger kid or something like this. Tell us a little bit about your fitness when you were a kid, when you were a young adult, and stuff like that.
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to see how weird I look in that little box. So, yeah, I mean, when I was a kid, I played soccer. I did the normal thing. I always had an aversion, though, to sugar ever since I was a kid.
Okay.
I was always running to the candy store. I was always eating chocolate. Like, I was like I wasn't fat. I was heavy, but I wasn't fat. The real heaviness came, in my teens and then in my 20s again. And once like school ended, there went all my physical activity.
Okay.
And then I started to gain weight when I was, in my late teens, early 20s, because I didn't really have any type of physical fitness routine.
Okay.
I just knew that, I needed to lose weight. So I would go join a gym, and I would go like real hard for like 3 days. and then
big commitment.
And then it would stop.
Big commitment, 3 days.
Yeah, big commitment.
Yeah.
Go ahead, sorry.
So tell me, and I presume is when you're joining gyms, you're getting into young adulthood and when you get married and stuff like that. How first of all, how tall are you? I always got to ask this so people can kind of envision stuff like that. How tall are you?
5'11".
Okay. What was the heaviest you were at, and when was that at?
I was 260 pounds.
Okay. Wow. And how long ago? How old were you when you were that?
Last year.
Oh wow. Okay. So was that for like a long period of time that you were like that?
It fluctuated. I would lose 10 pounds, drop 10 pounds. I was in that cycle. Okay, guys, I'm going to do it. Tomorrow we're starting. So I'm going to eat like a fat ass all weekend because Monday was starting. Okay. Like that's, and I would drag my wife into that too. Hey, all right, we're going to be good starting Monday, so let's be fat all weekend.
Right.
So, and that's the type of stuff I would do over and over and over and over again, which apparently my doctor said is actually worse for you than just maintaining fat assery.
Okay.
Supposedly going up and down, it causes something with your arteries, she was telling me, with the buildup, because I had high cholesterol, high triglycerides, and then I was told that if I didn't lose weight, that I would have to go on cholesterol medication.
Okay.
My cholesterol was really high.
Okay.
But you know what? That didn't even do it to me. It was the triglycerides. When I read that triglycerides in your system is like a straight up caused by your eating.
Wow.
And that's the level of fat in your blood, right? Triglycerides.
Right.
Yeah. And it was so bad. My doctor said, "All right, look, if you're gonna have candy, have this type of candy."
Wow.
She was. Yeah, it was bad, and it was because I was a smoker at one point, and I substituted. I started eating instead of smoking, and that just made it so much worse.
Yeah.
That's where the real gains happened. That's what pushed me all the way up, and then quitting smoking was another disaster because I replaced even more food. Yeah,
okay.
It was.
Biggest vice as far as candy, what was it?
Biggest vices besides candy?
No, as candy. What was your favorite? What was the hardest thing to give up?
Fish.
What was the hard?
Swedish.
What? Really?
Swedish fish.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, you know, it's funny, you know how you talk to, you know, like recovering alcoholics and they're telling you, oh, I can't walk past a bar. For me, it was, I can't walk down that aisle at CVS. Like, that was my bar.
Yeah.
You know, seeing all the Werthers and the Snickers and the Dove and all that. Like, I had a problem. I was buying bags and bags and bags of that stuff at a time. I would go through an entire bag of Hershey's Kisses in one sitting.
Wow. And it was just a sugar thing? There wasn't anything mental that was eating at you or anything like that?
No, I mean, you know, in times of stress, I would kick it up a couple of notches, maybe a bag and a half.
Yeah.
But, you know, just to get through my day, I'd be sucking on chocolate. And then what was happening was my blood sugar levels were all over the place.
Uh-huh.
Right? So, and then that was tied to my mental state, to my stress and everything.
Right.
So, and then, you know, when my blood sugar would start to drop, I would look for more candy, you know, and it was horrible. I was pre-diabetic when all this was going on.
Wow. And so what was finally, and you talked a little bit about you joined gyms. I take it you did that a couple of times or something like that. What was?
Yeah, every year I would join a gym. Every year. And I would go for a couple of weeks, and then it would just kind of crash. I wouldn't go. And then I would try again, and then I owed this gym money, and I couldn't go to there, so I had to go to another gym. You know, my wife, she banned me from joining any other gyms because I would say, I'm going to go, I'm going to do it. And then I would waste our money.
Wow.
It didn't matter if it was a $200 gym or a $10 gym. I always ended up not going.
Okay.
Because I didn't have the right mindset. I didn't have the right community or tribe. Nobody else around me was into any type of fitness.
Mm-hmm.
You know, everybody. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead and finish.
Yeah, I mean, there was no one around me that could keep me accountable. No one, you know, to go with to the gym. Nothing. So, and they say, you know, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. You know, and everybody I spend the most time with, we all love eating. You know, it was perfect.
Yeah. So what was the thing that triggered the change for you?
What triggered my change?
Yeah, what finally was just like, this is it, I've got to do this? I mean, was it the diagnoses you were getting, or what was it?
No, because I was given a diagnosis a few times. You know, it just, I had always wanted to do martial arts, and I had done it initially when I quit smoking. But again, my mindset wasn't there, and I stopped. And then about a year ago, in Larry's group, he was interviewing Chris Romulo, the Muay Thai guy from New York.
Yeah.
And so when we were in his call, I was like, this is it. This guy's talking all about Muay Thai or Thai boxing, and I've been wanting to do this for years. And tomorrow I'm signing up. I'm done.
And what did your wife say?
Oh my God, you're not going to go. And to her credit, she was right every other time.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, training martial arts is not cheap.
Right.
You know, so when I came home with the price, and she was like, "Whoa," you know, but I was like, "It's different this time. I'm going to do it." And the key was the fact that I joined an amazing gym. And I think some of these guys are commenting on the video now. I'm not looking because I'll start laughing.
Yeah.
But I joined an amazing gym who, like, I walked in there like a fat ass, like my belly hanging out all over the place. I couldn't jump rope. I was falling everywhere. And, like, nobody treated me any differently than the fighter that was next to me, you know? There was no I didn't feel like I was being judged. And there was so much to judge. You know, I was judging myself.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, nobody made me feel like an idiot.
Yeah.
And that's always your biggest fear when you want to start a fitness regimen, whether it's in a regular gym or in a martial arts gym, is, oh my God, people are going to look at me because I don't know what I'm doing.
Right.
You know, and instead of people laughing at me, people came over and were like, no, throw a jab this way, throw a kick this way. Like, people just help you. It's community.
Yeah.
Same thing, like, you know, having a group of people just around you overall who you can be successful with physically and mentally. But anyway, these guys have been there for me for this entire year. I've been going to this gym, and it's been awesome. You know, they email me when I don't show up. When it's been a while, I'm getting text messages, yo, where are you? You know, and it's accountability on the spot in person.
Right.
You know, when you're in a gym on your own and you don't feel like pushing that extra set, you can just check out and go.
Yeah.
You know, if I check out and go in my training, I'm getting yelled at right there.
So the training gets going, you get your Muay Thai going, and you're enjoying it. Let me ask, though, here's the question. What happened with the diet? Were you able to change that?
Yes.
How did that go?
Because I developed a fighter's mindset, right? So I said, if I'm going to train like these other fighters do, I have to eat like they do also. You know, I can't fuel my body with crap if I'm going to go burn 1,000 calories. I need to fuel 1,000, you know, I need to fuel myself enough so I could burn that. And I'll never forget my aha moment. It was like my second or third class. I come home to eat, and I was like, what's this weird feeling? I said to my wife, like, this is weird. I feel this hunger. I said, and I feel like I'm looking for something that's going to, like, do something for my body. I'm not looking for candy. I'm not looking for chips. I feel like my body's asking me to give it, something to help it recuperate from this crazy workout I just did. And I was like, all right, I need tuna, I need spinach. You know, like, I started, like, it was so weird. And it was like, wow. I can honestly say at that moment I realized that like 90% of the eating that I was doing up until that minute was not out of hunger and was not out of a nourishment and a nutrition thing.
That's huge. That's huge. I had a moment like that too before I lost the last part of my weight. I got home one night and it was like I wanted something to snack on, but I knew I didn't want chips. And chips and crackers are my vice. And I knew, and I mean, I put out this post on Facebook and I was like, give me some healthy alternatives to chips. And I was working with a trainer when I did that, and he told me, he goes, that was the moment that it switched, was you wanted something different and your body was craving something different. So that's huge.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. So let me ask you, when is the last time you've had Swedish fish?
Oh my God, months.
Months.
It's been months. Yeah.
Do you think, and here's the question, do you think you could have a couple or not?
I could.
Okay.
I could, but I have to be very careful.
Yeah.
You know, I got to like put them away, give them to the kids, get them out of here because I have an addiction.
Yeah.
It's a legitimate addiction. And the research I've done, sugar, same exact pathways as cocaine. It's a dopamine, you know, and going to the gym actually, again, is what helps because once you get your routine going, I call it like, it's like deposits, you know, you got to keep going. And like a week after, you feel it. You feel like the dopamine levels in your brain, you feel better. And it's a natural release. It's not chemically induced by sugar or, you know, whatever other drugs, nicotine or anything that you do. And that release, it's that dopamine that you get from being physically fit is way different.
Yeah.
It's way different because there's no crash.
Right. It's consistent.
There's no crash.
Constant. Yeah.
It's like your whole being.
Yeah. So you were 260 about a year ago?
Yeah. Yep.
And today you are how much?
I try not to weigh myself.
Okay.
The last time when I weighed myself at the doctor's office, I was 203.
Wow. That's awesome. So about 60 pounds.
Yep.
Do you want to try and lose more, or are you just working for fitness now, or what's your focus from this point forward?
Look, we can always cut weight, you know.
Well, you can only lose so much, though. I mean, I got to that point at one point too. It was like, okay, I can't just keep losing weight forever. You realize that fitness is more than just a number on the scale. But so I mean,
I still have my problem area is my gut, which is like the worst, you know, for your heart. So I definitely have more that I can lose. Okay. But you know, it's funny because having done this type of training, it's made me kind of wonder, I wonder if I would like doing regular exercises now because I want to bulk up my arms and I want to throw these jabs better. And you know what I'm saying? So, I'll pick up some weights every now and then just to supplement. I can't see myself ever going to a regular gym full time. It always would have to be this type of thing. But, it's made me do other things that I couldn't do without it. Like I've done a 5K just a couple of months ago. I did a Spartan, which I never thought I would do. I'm actually,
there you go.
I finished it. I finished a Spartan.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So what's next? I mean, what do you think you're going to do next?
I signed up for another Spartan.
That's awesome. When is that?
I signed up for. That's in November.
Okay.
On Long Island is the first one that they're going to do.
Wow. That'll be great. How far of a run is that? What is that, a sprint?
It's lightning just.
Oh, really?
You hear that?
Ooh, yeah, I did hear that. That's crazy.
Wow. It's a 5K with obstacles.
Okay.
And it's when you finish that, when you will go through the finish line.
Yeah.
I did it in the stadium. The first one was a stadium sprint in Citi Field, and I swear to God, I felt like the whole stadium was packed with people for a Mets game cheering for me. And then when I went like this and woke up, there was nobody there. But it was awesome. Like I did this.
That's a great feeling.
Everybody's Facebook pictures I've seen, walking through a finish line. It was like, wow, that got to be me. I did that.
Yeah. That's awesome.
It was surreal. Especially being a former fat kid, which I'll always be at heart.
Yeah.
It was unreal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I got two.
Another aha moment like that for me was the first time I saw myself on video, like just throwing Muay Thai moves. I was like, oh my God, that's me.
Pretty cool, isn't it?
And I'm known for my push kicks.
Okay.
Or my teeps, as we call them.
Okay.
Fire.
Yeah, a couple people have commented about your teeps, so that's good to know because I didn't know what a teep was, so that's good to know. That's good to know. Okay, I got two questions for you as we wrap up here. First question: the biggest struggle in your weight loss was what?
The biggest struggle in my weight loss is mindset.
Okay.
You have to maintain that mindset that you can't do it without mindset. Everybody knows how to lose weight. You know what you're supposed to eat. Sometimes you need a reminder. But we always say the fat people always know how to lose weight, but they don't because it's all up here.
Right.
Mindset will always be a struggle. There's days I get up and I'm like, I don't feel like going. But you can go with I feel like. It's like I'm going. That's it. It's a habit.
Yeah.
That's why mindset totally trumps motivation. Motivation doesn't work.
Amen. No, it does not. It's fleeting. It's fleeting. That's very true. That's very true. And as we wrap this up, obviously the name of this podcast and the thing we always talk about is Defining Dad Bod. What does that mean to you?
Defining Dad Bod.
Defining Dad Bod.
I think it means keeping yourself physically and mentally. I like to throw because if mental is not there, physical is not there. Keeping yourself fit so you can serve as an example for your children, because you're setting that template. If I'm fat, they're going to be fat too. You're setting that example for them. And be whoa, do you hear that?
Yeah.
Wow. And it means to me, if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of anybody else. I can't provide for my family if I'm not in good shape. If I'm not physically fit.
Yeah.
It's about, putting the mask on yourself. I need to make sure that I hit the gym at least 3 times a week. Otherwise, I'm going to drag and I'm not going to be able to show up for my family and show up for my kids.
Yeah. And one thing I want to point out, you talk about taking care of others. I want to point this out because you might be too modest to talk about it. You have been an incredible example and have been an incredible motivator for a whole bunch of guys in the Good Dad Project. They are just like fitness gurus and addicts and stuff like that. And I've had people tell me you are an incredible motivator for stuff like that. So I want to tell you that, and I want to tell you that there's a lot of people that appreciate it. So thank you very much for doing that, because you're beyond your family. You're influencing families across the country. So I think that's a great thing. That's a great thing.
That's great to hear.
So
we all have the potential to take care of ourselves and to be fit. It's just, again, tapping into this. And all I'm doing is helping these guys develop that mindset so they show up to the gym or show up to fitness for themselves.
Yeah.
You know, you show up to work for someone else. You do everything else for yourself, for everybody else. But what do you do for yourself?
Exactly.
You know.
Exactly.
So.
Hey, do me a favor. When we're done here, will you post a before and after picture down there in the comments on
Sure.
this? That would be great.
Sure.
That would be great. Thank
Definitely.
you so much, buddy. I appreciate it. It's been fun.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for you're quite the motivator too. Somebody should interview. We should.
I've already been. I was interviewed a long time ago. You just missed it. Go back on iTunes and listen to all of his stuff. I was on there.
All right.
Take care, man. Thanks.
All right. I'll see you, man.
Bye-bye.
Wasn't that awesome? 8 transformation stories from 8 different guys who looked at themselves and said, man, something has to change. And they got on that horse and they saw their journey through to the end and are still making progress in their own personal health and fitness. Virtual high fives to Joseph, Dan, Michael, Ryan, Tony, Aaron, Jason, and Reggie for being guys who are defining dad bod. If you're that person or know somebody who is, please reach out to coachal at definingdadbod.com. We would love to interview you or your friend's transformation story to honor you and to inspire other people to do the same for themselves, their families, and their communities. And if you'd like to join the movement of Defining Dad Bod, go to www.patreon.com/definingdadbod to support more transformation story shows just like this one. It's one thing to hear from me what good health and fitness practices actually look like. But there are everyday guys who believe their stories are just like everybody else's stories. And if they can do it, you can do it. And you can't imagine how inspiring and motivating that can be, not just to you, but to so many other people. Help us spread the word at www.patreon.com/definingdadbod. Thanks so much for joining the Summer Transformation Story Show. Until next time, guys, kick butt, take names.